Good evening, students. Starting with the marathon of labor laws. So let's proceed further with labor law. When it comes, just a second. When it comes to labor laws, it is the part B of your setting up of a business paper. The setting up of business paper can be further divided into two parts. First one is related with those all laws and regulations which has been applicable if you are willing to open a business, like all licensing, permissions, registration which is required if you are willing to get into get into business entrepreneurship journey, right? Now whenever it comes to the part B, that is labor law, which is all related with all the labor laws or employment related laws that has been applicable over here in India, right? The total paper is carrying 20 chapters, out of which first 13 chapters belongs to setting up of business and remaining 7 chapter belongs to labor laws, right? And those 7 chapters are carrying a weightage of 40 marks. Those 7 chapters are carrying weightage of 40 marks, right? So in this marathon we are going to complete quickly all the chapters that has been covered in your labor law portion, that is all 7 chapters, in a quicker manner. I'll try to cover even past year papers ka quick review, so that after watching this marathon you guys would be capable enough to cope up with whatever question that would be asked in your December 2024 examination. Okay, students, so let's proceed with marathon of labor laws. In order to go smooth, what I have decided, in order to go smooth, rather than starting with the first chapter of labor law, that is constitution and labor law, which is quite complicated, I am proceeding further with 18th chapter, and in 18th chapter I am picking up first the payment of wages act. What I am picking up, students, is the payment of wages act. So if you'll go ahead with the payment of wages act, as the name suggests, this is a law that has been passed by the Parliament of India, that has been passed in 1936, and it has been pre-constitutional law, right? It has been passed before the promulgation of constitution, and the basic objective of this law is to ensure the regulation of the payment of wages. To ensure the regulation of the payment of wages is the basic objective, that whenever it comes to a worker working within an establishment that has been covered under this act, they would get timely payment of wages. If this law would not happen, your employer may choose to give you infrequent payments, like sometimes they'll pay you daily, or sometimes they would pay you monthly, sometimes they will pay you quarterly. So they would be at their own convenience. But as the payment of wages act has been applicable over here in India, they're bound to make monthly payment, minimum monthly payment. They are bound to make minimum monthly payment, that at any point of time the wage period should not be more than 1 month. In any case, it can be, you can make daily payment of wages, you can make fortnightly payment of wages, you can make weekly payment of wages, maximally you can make monthly payment of wages, but you cannot make any wage payment where the wage period would be more than 1 month. That is the first basic objective. And the second basic objective is, when it comes to payment of wages, the payment of wages should be done without unnecessary deductions of any kind of fines and penalties. The act is regulating two aspects of payment of wages. The first one is the wage period. They are saying that in any case the wage period should not be more than 1 month. And the second basic objective is, only permissible fines, penalties, and other amounts can be deducted from the total amount of the wages of the worker. You cannot make unauthorized deduction. A deduction which is not being approved by this law will be treated as what? Unauthorized deduction. And remember, students, whenever there would be a contradiction between law and contract, if you will get into a contract with your employer and your employee is all okay if you are going to pay the payment of wages on once in a 2 months, or they're okay with your unauthorized deduction, that doesn't mean that you can do it according to the contract. Whenever there would be a clash between contract and the law will prevail. So even if the employee would agree with any kind of deduction and you are deducting that amount, it will be treated as unauthorized deduction in spite of having agreement and consensus of the employee. Got my point? So this act is going to regulate three things: wage period, timely payment of wages, and the third one is what? The deductions. Three things are going to be regulated. First, they are regulating the wage period. Second, they are regulating the timely payment of wages, that the wage need to be paid within the period of 7 days or within the period of 10 days, as the case may be. I'll teach you that. And the third thing they are regulating is unauthorized deductions. They are regulating what? Unauthorized deduction. Is it clear? Employer is nothing more than a person who, employee and employer both includes the original employer and employee and their legal hire. So when it comes to an employer, if he would die, the timely payment of wages would become the duty of the person who is going to be his successor. Got my point? There is no need to go ahead with the definition of industry and all. There is no need to go ahead with the definition of wages. Just remember, if you can remember, wages over here means and includes salary, overtime wages, bonus. It includes termination payments and legal entitlement, but it does not include any kind of bonus, any kind of employees contribution, any kind of travel allowance, any kind of special expenses. If you can, this is not very much required. Okay. Now, one of the case I have included in my notes, you guys are going to get the copy of this notes as well, as you are attending marathon, and referring this notes are more than sufficient. You need not to go through with any other thing other than these notes. We have included everything, that is past year papers as well as the study material of ICSI thoroughly. So this much notes are more than sufficient. Now, when it comes to retirement compensation, will it be included for the computation of wages under Payment of Wages Act? Answer would be exactly yes, right? Because termination payments are the part of the payment of wages, right? Now, who would be responsible for the payment of wages? The person who is the in charge of the factory, that is called the occupier of the factory, would be responsible to make sure that three compliances has been taken care. Wage period is not more than 1 month, timely wage payment has been done, and the third and the last thing is unauthorized deductions has not been made, right? Now, in case of industrial establishment in the form of company or in terms of railway administration and all, the person who is the having the ultimate control of the organization will be held responsible for contravention of this act. In case of contract worker, those who are not directly hired by the employer but being hired through the contractor would be responsible. Contractor would be responsible for the payment of wages. If the contractor will fail, then the principal officer, that is the employer, will be held responsible for the same, right? Now, within this is the most important section, that is section 4. Section 4 is stating that within how many days the wage should be done paid. So when it comes to an establishment where the number of employees are less than 1,000, if number of employees are less than 1,000, they are under an obligation to make the payment of wages within the period of 7 days from the end of the wage period. So if the wage period is weekly, the payment should be made within the next 7 days from the end of the week. If it is monthly, the payment of the wage should be done within the period of 7 days from the end of the month. So if the month is ending by 31st, by the 7th of the next month, they have to make the payment of wages. That is the maximum permissible time, right? If the number of employees in an establishment is 1,000 or more than 1,000, they have to make the payment of wages within the period of 10 days from the end of the wage period. Okay. So smaller organization has been provided with the 7 days ka period for payment of wages, and larger organizations are being provided with the period of 10 days to make the payment of wages, right? If the organization is being associated in transportation like water transportation or air transportation, once the loading and unloading has been done, after loading and unloading within the period of 7 days, the wage has to be paid, right? Now, when it comes to termination of employment, wage, whatever due amount belonging to the terminated employee should be paid within the period of 2 working days. 2 working days. Okay. So remember, when we are talking about 7 days, 10 days, 7 days, right? In that cases, only all days are being included, working and non-working days, right? But when it comes to termination payment, it need to be made within the period of 2 working days, right? It is not within the period of 2 days, it is within the period of two working days. So if the employee has been fired on Friday, he'll get the payment by Tuesday, because Saturday and Sunday would become the non-working day. Got my point, students? Is it clear? Is it clear? And wage should always be made in payment on working day. The last point is, wage payment should always be done on the working day. So suppose if 7 day from the end of the wage period is Sunday, then you have to make the payment on Saturday if it is a working day. Or if Saturday and Sunday, 6th and 7 days non-working day, you have to make the payment within 5th day. Okay, got my point, students? So what is the rule ultimately? The first rule is if your you are having number of employee less than 1,000, make the payment of wage within the period of 7 days from the end of the wage period. If you are having number of employee 1,000 and more, make the payment of wages within the period of 10 days from the end of the wage period, right? When you are involving in a water transportation or something where payment of the wage would be done on the loading or unloading of the goods from the ship, then you have to make the payment of wage within the period of 7 days from the date of loading and unloading. If the employee has been terminated from the job, he has to get the payment within the period of 2 working days, not 2 days, right? And wage payment should always be made on the working day, right? So if it is Sunday, you cannot make the payment on Monday by saying that, oh, it's Sunday was a non-working day. You can make 1 day early payment, but you cannot make it 1 day later. If you are making 1 day later, it will lead to what? Contravention of this act, right? Got my point, students? Is it clear? Generally, wage can be paid in cash or it can be paid through banking channel. But if the appropriate government has notified that your organization has to make the payment of wage in through banking channel only, through GPay, QR code, or by UPI, or by NEFT, or to RTGS through check instruments, okay, in that case you have to make the payment by using that particular method. For that you have to go through with the state government ka notification. You have to go through the state government's notification. Is it clear, students? Getting everything? What I'm teaching you is, I'm teaching you Payment of Wages Act, right? Then second thing is, now section 7 after section 4 is very important. It is stating that there are certain permissible amount that can be deducted from the overall wages of the employee. The first amount would be the fines. The second amount would be the absence from the duty, logical. The third amount should be damage or loss that has been caused by the negligence of the employee to the assets of the organization. Then if the employer has provided with any house facility or other amenities to the employee, the amount of that facility can be deducted from the total wages. Then any advance payment that has been made to the employee can be adjusted towards it. Then if the employee has taken any kind of loan, then repayment of loan and interest thereof can be deducted from the same. Now, if the employee has subscribed for any provident fund or pension fund, that subscription amount can be deducted from his payment. Income tax, any kind of insurance scheme ke liye, if he has subscribed, that can be deducted from his wages. These all are the 10 amounts that is allowed to be deducted. But when it comes to fines, there are clearly certain rules related with fines, which is being regulated by section 8. Now they are saying that if you are willing to put any fine upon the employee, it need to be clearly communicated to the employee. Autocratically, you cannot deduct any amount of fine by saying that we have imposed this fine, now you have to pay that fine. All fines that has been imposed on the employee need to be communicated to the appropriate government first thing, and should be communicated to the employee. Okay. Appropriate government will approve the list of fines that can be deducted from the employee's salary. Employee should not be fined without getting a reasonable opportunity of being heard. Means a show cause notice need to be issued to the employee. An employee should be provided with a reasonable opportunity of being heard before imposing any penalty or any fine. Maximum fine for a wage period can be not more than 3% of the wage payable. Means if I'm paying him a wage of 10,000 rupees, maximum fine that I can charge for that wage period would be 300 rupees, not more than that, right? Fine will not be imposed on an employee who is having an age of less than 15 years. No fine can be imposed. Fine can be recovered within the period of 90 days from the date of imposition of fine, and fine cannot be recovered on installment basis. It will be recovered on one go. Okay. So first rule is, if you are willing to impose any fine, you have to go through with the appropriate government ke rules in order to check that whether that fine is legitimate or not. Any fine that is going to be imposed upon the employee should be duly communicated to the employee, means it should be the part of the terms and condition of his appointment. If you are imposing any kind of fine upon the worker, he should be provided with reasonable opportunity of being heard. No fine can be imposed on a person who is having a age of under 15, right? Next, maximum permissible amount of fine for any particular period can be maximum 3% of the wage for the wage period, right? Not more than that. Installment recovery of fine is not at all allowed. This question has been asked earlier in previous attempts. Installments are not allowed, but you can recover it within the period of 90 days from the date of imposition. Is it clear? Whatever fine that has been charged, you have to maintain proper records of the same, and that record would be available for inspection by the inspector. And whatever fine that has been collected would be transferred to a common employee welfare fund, and it is going to be spent on employees welfare. It cannot be used by the employer for its own activities or business activities. It need to be transferred to a common fund, and it is going to be spent on welfare of the employee. Every employer has to maintain proper records of payment of wages, point number one, and payment of imposition of fines. Two records has to be maintained under this act, and that need to be preserved for a minimum period of 3 years. Okay. Appropriate government will decide that who is going to take care of application of this act. If now this is a very important provision, application for claim. If being an employee, you find it like your employer has deducted some wrong amount from your salary, and if you're not happy, then within the period of 12 months from the date of imposition of fine or from the date of due salary, you can make an application to the inspector appointed under this act by the appropriate government to take action against your employer. If you're not getting payment on time, the employer has committed default on due payment of wages on time, or if he has imposed any kind of fine or penalties upon you and you are not satisfied with the fines and penalties, in that case you are having right to take action against your employer within the period of 12 months. 12 month is the limitation period. Okay, 12 month is the limitation period. Within the period of 12 months, you can make an application to the inspector appointed by appropriate government to take action against your employer, and this 12-month ka period can be condoned. That 12-month ka period can be condoned based on the grounds, means if you are having sufficient cause, it would be condoned. Okay. Maximum penalty that can be imposed by the inspector can be 3,000, 10 times of the amount deducted, or 3,000, whichever is lower. For delay payment of wages, the penalty imposed can be 1,500 to 3,000. Within 3 months from the date of making the claim, matter is going to be resolved. So you need to make application within the period of 12 months, and your application is going to be sorted out within the period of 3 months from the date of registration of your application, right? If the employer would provide for that there is a bona fide delay, he may be subject matter of no compensation. Compensation for delay is 1,500 to 3,000. Compensation for the penalty, wrong penalty, would be 10 times of the amount deducted, or 3,000, right? Contract employees are also covered under the purview of the Payment of Wages Act. Is it clear, students? Application of this act is totally dependent on the authority appointed by the appropriate government, right? From the point of view of examination, this much is more than enough when it comes to Payment of Wages Act. Is it clear, students? So we have done with 18, chapter number 18, unit number 1, that is Payment of Wages Act. Now in the further lecture, I will continue with the Minimum Wages Act. Okay, students, see you in Minimum Wages Act. Now starting with Minimum Wages Act. So when it comes to minimum wages act, we know that India is a economy where employment is a big problem, right? When it comes to India, employment is the central problem of economy. Means we are having less number of vacancies, but we are having more and more people, and jobs are being available very to get the job is a very difficult task in this country, right? Although because of Modi government certain initiative like startup, make in India initiative and all, now there are good number of jobs available in India, but still there is more of manpower, less of jobs available. So in such situation, we can say that there is a huge gap between demand and supply. Means demand for the jobs are more, but supply of jobs are less. So there would be a situation that the employer will take the advantage of this position and they'll pay the marginal wages or below marginal wages to the worker. Means it will lead to exploitation of worker, because if you're not getting the job, you will start working with low amount of wages, with low amount of salary, because ultimately you need job, right? So in order to make sure that such kind of economic exploitation, physical exploitation of the worker should not be done, this is known as economic exploitation. Like if a worker is working for 8 hours a day, and as per his skill, you should pay 10,000 to him per month, but you are paying 6,000 to him. That 4,000 less you are paying. What you are doing? You are exploiting that worker, right? He would have no motivation for his work, and it will lead to nothing more than degradation of his living quality, right? And definitely that is not good at all for the community and the society. So in order to make sure that optimum wages has been paid by the organization or the establishment according to the requirement of the law, there is a policy intervention by the government, and that is in the form of minimum wages act, that it states that every establishment covered under this act has to make minimum payment of wages, not wages which is below the minimum wages. And if you are paying the wages which is below the minimum wages, it is a punishable offense. You are subject matter of imprisonment, not only just the penalty, because what you are doing, you are exploiting the community and it is an offense against the community, so it is not going to be entertained. Is that clear? So minimum wages act, although now because of the new labor code we are talking about living wages. Whenever we are talking about minimum wages, we are talking about food, shelter and clothes. Whenever we are talking about living wages, we are also talking about social security, we are also talking about medical benefit, we are also talking about the education of the children of the wages. So now the India is moving or shifting from minimum wages to the living wages. Living wages is a broader concept. Now in future we can say that employer of an organization would have an obligation to pay not bare minimum wages but to pay the living wages. Means he should also take care of the health insurance of their workers, they have to take care of life insurance of the worker, they have to take care of the education of the children of the worker, so that social upgradation can be done. Okay, got my point, student? But as of now, what is mandatory over here in India is just minimum wage. Okay, now the basic objective is what is the basic objective? Preventing the worker from getting economically exploited, right? Only applicable on scheduled employment. Scheduled employment is nothing more than the employment that has been stated in the first schedule to this act. So this act is not going to be applicable on all the industries. It is going to be applicable on certain establishments who are hiring worker for the scheduled employment, right? And all the labor laws are going to be implemented by the appropriate government. So it is going to vary from state to state, because act has been passed by the parliament, but the rule making authority is there with the state government. Why? Because definitely the working condition in one state is totally different from the working condition in different state. Cost of living index is totally different in Mumbai, cost of living index is totally different in Nagpur, right? So logically the terms and condition of labor payment should be determined and vary from the state to state. So power to determine the minimum wage, power to implement labor laws always lies with whom? Appropriate government, and which is generally what? The state government, right? Even out worker will be treated as worker over here in this act. So out worker would also be eligible for the minimum wage. And what is out worker? It is nothing more than the person who is working from home. He means who is not working in the office premises. He's taking the assignment from the employer, getting it done and return it back to the employer, like Lijjat Papad and all, right? Employer would be the same person. In case of a factory, factory manager. In case of local authority owned institution, the local authority, the CEO of the local authority. Even contractor employee would come under the definition of employee under this act, right? Minimum wage includes remuneration, that is wages, basic wages plus house rent allowance. Two things will be included in the minimum wage. Okay. Even dearness allowance will be the part of the minimum wage. Schedule 1 is being divided into two parts. Part 1 is dealing with industrial employment. Part 2 is dealing with agriculture related employment. Okay. Part 1 is dealing with the industrial employment. Part 2 is dealing with agriculture employment. In part 1 and part 2, appropriate government can add employment but cannot delete employment. Okay. For part 1 employment, minimum wage need to be determined for entire state. It cannot be, any part of the state cannot be excluded. But for part 2 employment, that is called agriculture employment, you can determine wage for a particular district or particular area, but you can exclude certain area. Repeating it. Appropriate government is under an obligation to determine minimum wage for Schedule 1 employment. Schedule 1 is being divided into two parts. Part 1 is dealing with industrial employment. Part 2 is dealing with agriculture employment, right? When it comes to industrial employment, for industrial employment, you have to determine minimum wage for the entire state. Although it may vary from district to district, but you have to cover the entire state for industrial employment. But for agriculture employment, you may determine minimum wage for one particular district or one particular location, and you can exclude certain districts and locations. Got my point? Appropriate government is only under an obligation to determine minimum wage if the number of workers employed in that particular occupation is 1,000 or more than 1,000, okay, in the state. So if the appropriate government is willing to determine minimum wage for the factory worker or minimum wage for the construction worker, number of construction workers in the state should be not less than 1,000. It should be 1,000 or more, then only they will determine the minimum wage. Got my point, students? Minimum wage need to be revised every 5 years. Every 5 years it need to be revised. It can be revised even in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, but minimum 5 years it should be revised. It can be minimum time rate, minimum piece rate, minimum guaranteed time rate, overtime rate. Overtime rate would always be twice the basic rate. Appropriate government may choose to define the minimum wage including basic pay plus dearness allowance, basic pay plus concession, or all-inclusive rate. There are two methods to determine the minimum wage. What the government can do, the appropriate government will adopt bottom-up approach to determine the wage, means a participative or a democratic approach. They'll constitute a committee in which 1/3 person represents the government representative, 1/3 would represents the employer representative, 1/3 would represents the employee representative. These three people will constitute committee, and they, as they are the representative of worker, representative of employer, and independent representative of government, they'll determine one wage rate. The wage rate will be advised to the appropriate government, and if appropriate government won't make any modification on the same, after making modification, they'll notify the minimum wage. This is known as committee method. Got my point? And committee is having just an advisory role. Appropriate government may accept their advice or may reject their advice. Is it clear? I told you the committee will constitute what? 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, right? Second is the notification method. Notification method is appropriate government by itself will propose a minimum wage rate, new minimum wage rate. It is going to be published in newspaper, in official gadget, and all the worker working within the same employment will be provided with 2 months ka time to put their objections. After sorting out their objections, the final rate will be determined and notified. Is it clear? And even minimum wage can be notified with retrospective effect. Remember, minimum wage can be notified with retrospective effect. Is it clear? So there are two methods. One is committee method. where a democratic approach has been adopted, a committee has been constituted, they'll recommend the rate to the appropriate government, then appropriate government will notify the rate, and the role of the committee will be advisory. When it comes to notification method, government will come up with the proposed rate, they'll give 2 months ka period to put their inputs, employer and employee both can object, and based on objections and sorting out the same, the final rate is going to be notified. In both the methods, minimum wage rate can be determined from the retrospective effect, and if it has been revised from the retrospective effect, employer has to pay the difference. Okay, for example, if earlier the minimum wage was 10,000 and the government has revised it by, to 11,000 rupees to be counted from last 2 years, so for last 2 years you have to compensate the employee for 1,000 rupees extra. Got my point? What is advisory board, beta? Advisory board is nothing more than the board, whether it is central advisory board or it is a state advisory board. It will be constituted by appropriate government or central government. If it is a central advisory board, it will carry again one third, one third, one third. That is one third of the employee representative, one third of the employer representative, and one third would be the independent representative. And their role would be advisory role to advise the appropriate government or to advise the central government in terms of minimum wages for a particular industries. Okay. So whenever it comes to a policy related with minimum wages made by the appropriate government or by the central government, it is generally be recommended by the advisory boards. Okay. Committee is different, advisory board is different, right? Minimum wage should always be paid in cash. Appropriate government can approve it to be paid in kind, but generally it should always be paid in cash. Got my point? It is the statutory obligation of the employer to make minimum wage payment and without any deduction. If you are not paying it, it will lead to criminal punishment. Now the second aspect is section 13, which is very important. They are saying that if you are determining the minimum wage rate, but you are not determining the minimum time hours or normal working hours that would be given to the employee, then employer will use the second trick to exploit the employee. They'll pay the minimum wage, but they ask the employee to work for 12 hours, 14 hours, 10 hours, right? So now the appropriate government, the law also talk about what normal working hours. So what would be the normal working hour for any adult employee? The normal working hour, including all the breaks, should not be more than 8 hours a day. Maximum permissible period for working in a single day would be 8 hours a day. Okay, and for overtime, double amount has to be paid, right? One full day should be the holiday. It may be a notified date, maybe Saturday, Sunday, but one weekly holiday is mandatory. If you are working for a rest day, you will get the double payment like overtime rate. Okay. Maximum 48 hours a week and one day not more than 8 hours, right? This is an effective working hours. It is not the preparatory time for the job and urgency work. These all will not be included in this normal working hour. 8 hours a day, 48 hours a week, one weekly holiday. For any hour more than 8 hours a day, 48 hours a week, or if you are working on a rest day, you will get overtime payment, and overtime payment should be not less than twice the normal payment, right? Proper registers and record you have to maintain in order to make sure that you are making minimum wage payment, and that would be available for inspection by the inspector, right? There is a 6 month ka imprisonment if you are involved in non-payment of minimum wage, right? So we have done with what, students? We have done with two chapters, that is Payment of Wages Act 1936 and Minimum Wages Act 1948, right? Outworker would be past year questions. Outworker would be the part of the Minimum Wages Act, and you are responsible to pay minimum wage to the outworker as well, right? Even if you are suffering losses, you have to make the payment of minimum wage. Having loss is not an excuse for non-payment of minimum wage, right? Even if you're facing losses, you have to pay the minimum wage, right? So done with two topics. Now we will proceed with the third topic, that will be most probably payment of bonus act, right? Done, students. Now, starting with the third chapter of labor law, which is payment of bonus act, we have already done with the quick revision of minimum wages act, and we have done with the quick revision of payment of wages act. Now, starting with payment of bonus act. So just try and understand the concept of payment of bonus act. When it comes to payment of bonus act, it is putting in statutory obligation on the employer of certain establishment where the bonus act has been applicable, that they have to ensure shared prosperity. Means if the organization is earning something, it should also be shared with the person who is contributing in the organization's growth, and that is nothing more than the employees. So earlier payment of bonus was totally optional, but after payment of bonus act 1965, it has become mandatory requirement to pay 13 month ka salary to the employees, or by to the employees by an organization or an establishment where the bonus act is applicable. So you must have heard that your family members are getting 1 month ka full salary on Diwali as a Diwali bonus. It is nothing more than a statutory bonus put with a tag of customary bonus, that because every organization or establishment on which bonus act has been applicable, they have to pay 8.33% of the salary and wages earned by the employee during the year to him as a wages. So 8.33 is nothing more than 112, that is nothing more than 1 month ka salary, that is called mandatory bonus to be paid by the organization. This is the minimum bonus that has to be paid by the organization to the eligible worker, in spite of having them profit or loss. It doesn't matter whether the organization is bearing the losses. Minimum payment of minimum bonus is mandatory under this act, and maximum bonus can be maximum up to 20%. Is it clear? 20% of the salary and wages earned by the employee. Is it clear? So this act is working towards what, beta? Shared prosperity, right? It is working towards what? Shared prosperity. It is trying to build peace and harmony between the employer and employee, right, by promoting shared prosperity. It is talking about profit based bonus, customary bonus, and attendance bonus, right? Statutory bonus and customary bonus are two different things. If from the beginning you were used to pay customary bonus, that is puja bonus, you have to pay in addition to that the statutory bonus. Both cannot be adjustable with each other. That you have to remember it. Okay. So if it is your practice to pay customary bonus, you have to pay customary bonus separately, and you have to pay the statutory bonus separately, right? So if you're paying puja bonus, now you have to pay the statutory bonus. So do you just wanted to discontinue with your puja bonus? That is not allowed. You have to continue with both the things, right? It is going to be applicable on all the factories, irrespective of number of members involved in employed in the factory. But when it comes to other establishment, minimum number of employee required to have applicability of bonus act is 20 employees. So this act is going to be applicable on all the establishment in the form of factory, irrespective of the number of employee employed therein. And it is going to be applicable on all the other establishment other than factory where the number of employees employed are 20 or more at any day during the preceding year. Appropriate government can impose the application of this act even on the establishment where the number of employees are less than 20 but not less than 10. But they have to give 2 month advance notice to the establishment that this act is going to be applicable on them. And once this act would become applicable, it remains applicable even if the number of employee goes below 20 or 10. Got my point? So four application rules are there. Going to be applicable on all the factories, going to be applicable on all the establishment having number of employees 20 in any day during the preceding year. can be notified by the appropriate government that you have to comply with the requirement of bonus act, that you have to make the minimum payment of bonus even though if you are having number of employee less than 20 but not less than 10. And fourth one is once applicable forever. It doesn't matter whether you are having now minimum number of employees or not. Right, section 32 is a very important section. This act is not going to be applicable on insurance employees, Siemens, dock worker, governmental and local authority employees, employees of university, education and not-for-profit institution, including Red Cross Society. So teacher would not be eligible for the bonus, okay, under this act, because it is not going to be applicable on university and educational institutions. So we would be excluded. It is not going to be applicable on RBI and financial institutions. Got my point, students? Now it is not going to be applicable on inland water transportation, but why it is not being applicable on them? Logic behind it that insurance worker, Siemens, dock workers, government and local authority worker, RBI, financial institution worker, inland water transportation worker are getting better facility than whatever is being provided under this act. And it is not going to be applicable on NGO employees or university and educational institution employee, because they may have different benefit in place of bonus provided by them, even on Indian Red Cross Society. That is very important. They have asked sometimes that whether the NGO employees will be eligible for the bonus or not. The first thing they have asked, or even they have asked for teachers as well. Now, appropriate government is having all authority to exempt any company from the application of this act. Exemption authority is there with the appropriate government, and this is only for the public interest, not for the private interest of the establishment. The exemption will be provided on certain conditions. It would be for public interest if it is because of the low financial position of the establishment. Um, And if it is because of financial position, the government will check that whether it is because of the workers' negligence or not. So on two grounds, you will get an exemption from the application of this act. First rule is exemption can only be granted by the appropriate government. It cannot be granted by a central government or any other authority. You have to make an application for the exemption. Exemption can be based on public interest requisition, or it may be based on bad financial health. And but there should be an involvement of employee in bad financial health of the organization, and there would be, right, logical. For every accounting year you have to pay the bonus, and whenever we are talking about accounting year, we are just talking about what beta 1st April to 31st March, right? Only employee whose salary is up to 21,000 would be eligible for the bonus. So only lower level employees will be eligible for the mandatory bonus whose monthly salary is not more than 21,000 rupees per month. Others may be covered by the establishment or may not be covered by the organization. It is totally based on the establishment, and apprentice is not at all an employee. Got my point, students? So what is the minimum bonus? That is 8.33% of salary and wages. And who would be eligible whose salary is 20K per month, not more than that, right? If your salary is 19,000 per month, you will get the bonus, right? If your father could not manage to pay the bonus, the son is ultimately responsible, who is going to succeed the establishment to pay the bonus, right? In case of corporation, the managing director will be classified as an employer, right? Now, while calculating the number of employees, 20 employees does matter. This is a very nice case study. You guys can refer. It does not require that you need to have number of employees 20 whose salary is up to 21,000. If you are having number of employees drawing more than 21,000 ka salary, but the number of employees are 20 or more, you have to comply with the requirement of this act. The act states that you need to have number of employees 20. It does not state that you need to have minimum 20 employees whose salary is equals to or below 21,000. Is it clear? So 21,000 will only be considered for checking the eligibility of employee to get the bonus, and 20 number will be considered to check the application of this act. Is it clear? Salary and wages formula does matter. It includes basic salary plus DA. So bonus is going to be calculated on basic salary and DA, not on other aspects, right? Now, whether one establishment will be treated as an establishment or not is totally dependent upon, it will be totally dependent upon the books of accounts. If you are maintaining separate books of accounts and if you are the part of the same group, it doesn't matter, you will be treated as separate establishment. So if your books of accounts are maintained separately, you will be a separate establishment. You have to qualify the criteria of 20 employees individually, not in the group. But if you are located in different locations and you are following centralized accounting system, worker working in all the branches will be considered for calculating the bonus obligation. Got my point? Minimum 30 days if the employee would work, then only he'll be eligible for the bonus. Otherwise, he would not be eligible for the bonus. What is the minimum bonus? I told you for up to 15 years, it is 8.33% of total salary and wages earned during the accounting year, or 100 rupees, whichever is higher. And in case of worker having an age of less than 15 years, it would be 60 rupees or 8.33%, whichever is higher. So we can understand this act is of 65. That is why they are giving a limit of 160, but they are talking about whichever is higher. So definitely nowadays, 8.33% would be higher than 60 and 100 rupees, right? Minimum 30 days working include laid off days, paid leave days, disablement due to accident days, and maternity leave days. So in order to calculate 30 days, if the employee has been laid off because he was available but the work was not there, so it will be counted as working day. Paid leaves will be counted as working day. Disablement due to accident will be counted as working day, and maternity leave will be counted as a working day. Got my point? But you have to minimum work for a period of 30 days, and these non-working days will be counted as working days. If you are involved in fraud, righteous behavior, violent behavior, theft, misappropriation, and sabotage, you would not be eligible for any kind of bonus, because bonus is sharing of prosperity, and prosperity is going to be shared with a person who have contributed over the prosperity of the organization, not who has committed wrong against the organization. Is it clear? If you are involved in misconduct, then if there is a loss traceable, then amount of loss can be deducted from your bonus. Otherwise, full bonus can be taken away from you. Is it clear? I told you 8.33% or 100 rupees or 60 rupees, whichever is higher, will be the minimum bonus. What is the maximum bonus, beta? That is 20% of the salary or wages, right? Now for bonus eligibility, what is the eligibility of bonus? That is 8.33 no, that is all employees drawing a salary of rupees 21,000 up to 21,000 will be eligible for 8.33% of the bonus. That is the minimum bonus. But while calculating 8.33% or 20%, actual salary or 7,000, whichever is lower will be counted for calculation of bonus. So suppose if I am drawing a salary of 18,000, I would be eligible for the payment of bonus, but my bonus will be calculated on 7,000 ka 8.33%, right? Or actual salary ka 8.33%, whichever is lower. So it will be what my actual salary is 20,000. So I am going to get 7,000 ka 8.33%. 7,000 I just calculated the monthly bonus. If it would be annualized, I'll multiply it with 12, right? So actual salary or 7,000, whichever is lower, will be counted per month, will be counted for computation of bonus. So ultimately, if you are drawing a salary of 20,000, you are going to get a bonus of 7,000. If you are drawing a salary of 6,500, you are going to get the bonus of 6,500 for the year if you have worked throughout the year, right? If in any year, if you are having available surplus, allocable surplus more than the maximum bonus, then you have to make a reserve for bonus payment for you have to provide it for bonus reserves, because in case of loss, even you have to pay the minimum bonus. So for the loss years, you will make a provision of bonus that is called bonus reserve, and that is known as set on. Set on is what? Creation of bonus reserve. Creation of bonus reserve is known as what, beta? Set on means you're transferring the part of profit into a bonus reserve, because this year you have made allocable surplus which is more than the maximum bonus. So you maximum bonus is 20%, so pay the maximum bonus, that is 20%, and remaining 20% you can transfer it to create a bonus reserve that is going to be used when the organization will have loss and they are under an obligation to pay the minimum bonus. So that when you are paying bonus out of reserve, that is called set off. When you are creating bonus reserve, that is called set on. Creation of bonus reserve is set on, and payment of bonus out of bonus reserve is called set off. Got my point, students? Is it clear? You have to get the bonus payment within 8 months from the end of the financial year, accounting year. You have to make the payment of the bonus within the period of 8 months from the date of end of the accounting year, and if there would be any dispute, then within 1 month from the date of settlement. But in any case, the payment of bonus should not be delayed more than 2 accounting years. Is it clear? So in case of dispute, settlement of disputes के 1 month के अंदर you have to make the payment of the bonus. Point number 1. Point number 2, if there is no dispute, you have to get it paid within the period of 8 months from the end of the accounting year, and in any case, extension can be up to maximum 2 years, right? Right, students? You can apply for appropriate government for the recovery of bonus, and it will be classified as lend revenue because it is due to the employee. So all employee dues would be counted as what, beta? Would be counted as lend revenue. If you are paying productivity bonus, even it can be within 8.33% or 20%. Non-payment of minimum bonus will lead to imprisonment of 6 months. In case of company, officer in default will be held responsible. Now, allocable surplus and available surplus are too technical, and I don't find there is a need to get it done, because in past year question you guys are going to get the certain solutions, but institute didn't ask any time about allocable and available surplus. So in marathon, to cover that is not means I don't think there is a need to cover it. Company is suffering with huge losses. It requires to pay the minimum bonus? Yes, they have to pay the minimum bonus. It doesn't matter whether you are in loss or profit. If the employee has committed misconduct, then loss is being calculatable, deduct the loss from your bonus payable, otherwise deduct forfeit the entire bonus, right? If an employee has been terminated and reinstated with full back wages, he would be eligible for all full bonus. Got my point? This is something that haven't been covered in the explanation. If I am being terminated for 5 months because investigation is going on against me, after 5 months I would feel I have been proved as non-guilty, then I have been reinstated. So I'm going to get full salary for the 5 months. So for 5 months, I'm also eligible for the bonus. Got my point, students? Same question. Suspension. Now they are asking that in order to calculate the bonus, what is going to be included? Basic pay plus DA. So subsistence allowance would not be included for calculating the bonus, because we know that salary includes only basic pay plus DA, not subsistence allowance, right? Same question, full back wages they have asked. If your company is getting amalgamated with another company, your employee would be eligible for whatever bonus that is being paid by the older company. Subordination is nothing more than doing something wrong against the organization, so you would not be eligible for any bonus for the same. Reinstation, subsistence allowance, I taught. Misconduct, I taught. Right. If the employee has been terminated and in the settlement deed it has been written that he would be eligible for maximum bonus, but now the company is willing to pay him minimum bonus, company has to pay him maximum bonus as being settled between company and the employee. Got my point? So generally you are under obligation to pay the minimum bonus, but you may have to pay maximum bonus if you got into a written settlement with your employee, because if there would be a clash between settlement and law, who would prevail over here would be the settlement, not the law. They have paid puja bonus, now they just wanted to discontinue it, they cannot get it done, right? This is very important case study, students. मिसकंडक्ट में वो that reinstation का question, I have added certain kind of news and something, but it was just for the detailed lecture, so you guys should just go through with what you guys have to just go through with the notes and past year papers, nothing more than that, right? All that news and all cannot be covered at this short period of span, right? Span of time, right? Now, Equal Remuneration Act is that I'm going to cover in the further lecture. Thank you so much, students. We have done with Payment of Bonus Act, right? Now, starting with continuing with labor law, Equal Remuneration Act, we'll have to go ahead. So, when it comes to Equal Remuneration Act, no, students, Equal Remuneration Act is just talking about three attributes. First, it is talking about gender equalization. So they are talking about first thing that while recruiting any employee, while coming out with any vacancy or coming out with any recruitment criteria, gender cannot be the criteria to reject a person. Means you cannot say that this job is only for woman or this job is only for man. Specifically for women, Equal Remuneration Act is. So while making a recruitment of an individual, the vacancy should be open with gender unbiased, means it will be open for both male and female. Second, they are saying that while recruiting, then they are talking about terms and condition, that when it comes to appointment of woman and man, they should be appointed for the similar work, they should be appointed for similar terms and condition including remuneration. Got my point? So basically this act is basically dealing with what? This act is basically dealing with three things, that there should be no recruitment based on gender disparity, there should be no remuneration that would be payable to the men worker more than female worker based on their gender discrimination if they are performing similar work. And the third thing is their appointment ka terms and conditions should be same to same, and it is been inspired from article 39 of Constitution of India. Got my point, students? Same work or work for similar nature, means if they are performing same work or they are performing work of similar nature. Got my point? Now this is very important concept in this chapter, that is what is same work or work of similar nature. So any work which requires similar skill, efforts and responsibility, three things are there. If in order to perform a work you need a same to same skill, same to same efforts and same to same responsibility, skill, effort and responsibility, it will be treated as same to same work, okay? Or you have to work in similar working condition. So it will be treated as a man and woman is working towards the same work or work of similar nature. if in order to perform that work similar skill is required, or similar or identical skill is required, similar or identical efforts is required, similar or identical responsibilities they are having, or they have to work in similar working condition. If these four conditions are satisfying, skill, efforts, responsibility and similar working condition, it will be treated as similar work, right? Same work or work of similar nature. Got my point? Even I have given example in my notes as well, so you guys can go through. And this act is having overriding effect over all the laws applicable over here in India. So if we'll go ahead with Equal Remuneration Act, we'll got to know that when it comes to coming out with any vacancy, no employer should come out with an vacancy by putting a gender priority or gender preferences until and unless with certain exceptional condition. Then second means gender tagging to a job is not permissible under this act. It has been inspired from Article 39 of Constitution of India. Appointment ke terms and condition and remuneration should be same for the same work or work of similar nature. And same work or work of similar nature is, it will be treated as same work if it does carry similar skills, similar responsibility and similar efforts, or they have to work in similar working condition, right? And this act is having overriding effect over all the laws that has been applicable over here in India, right? No agreement on law which is talking against this act can prevail, right? If your employment contract or a state law is saying something which is against this law is going to prevail, okay? For same work or similar work of similar nature, you have to pay the same amount, right? You cannot reduce the pay on the basis of gender inequality, right? I told you recruitment, maybe there should be no, not at all. In terms of recruitment, there should be no discrimination, right? But there are certain exceptions, like you cannot appoint a man for taking care of the children in Anganwadi or Balwadi. So that is something different. So reservation can be done for women, right? You have to maintain proper records. And offense under this act is criminal offense, so you have to bear the criminal penalty if you are not, complying with the requirement of this act. This act will override everything. Duty to pay equal remuneration. Recruitment mein there cannot be a discrimination, right? Complaint can be filed with the authority appointed under this act by the appropriate government. You have to keep the records, right? And penalty includes what? Criminal punishment. Done. So with this chapter we have done with chapter number, I guess it was chapter number 16, right? Chapter number 18, sorry. In 18 chapter there were 4 chapters: payment of wages act, minimum wages act, payment of bonus act and equal remuneration act. With this we have done with all 4 units of chapter number 18, right? Now I am starting with chapter number 17. We'll go ahead with Standing Order Act. Okay, students. So starting with chapter number 17, unit number 2, that is Industrial Employment and Standing Order Act. This states that if you are working in an organization, the terms and conditions that has been applicable to each and every employee who is working within the organization should be same to same. Means every worker who is working within a factory should be subject matter of same terms and condition. And how it can be same terms and condition, how it would not be a discriminatory terms and condition, if there would be a proper board that has been affixed in the conspicuous place of the organization. See, these are the terms and condition in terms of leave, in terms of payment date, in terms of casual leave, in terms of other terms and conditions. So employment ka all common terms and conditions should be common for all the worker who is working within the factory building or within the establishment. So in order to make sure that everybody will be subject matter of the common terms and condition, and there would be no discrimination done by the employer irrespective of any particular employee, Standing Order Act is applicable. Under this act, there are two provisions. First, you have to get a standing order, which is nothing more than list of common terms and condition that is going to be applicable upon worker working in your organization. You have to prepare that. What is standing order? It is nothing more than a proper format ka may prepared, detailed terms and condition, that is the list of all common terms and condition. This is going to be equitably applicable on any person who is going to work within the establishment, factory or organization, right? So standing order is the list of common terms and condition. But why it is known as standing order? Because you have to get that common terms and condition approved and registered with the certifying officer appointed under this act. Any change in that standing order does require mutual negotiation between the trade union and the employer, and it does require certification with the certifying officer again. Got my point? So this is standing order. So in order to make sure that there would be no discrimination in the workplace, Standing Order Act has became applicable. And second one is dealing with subsistence allowance, which is quite very important. Is it clear? So this act is going to be applicable in all establishment if the number of employee working within that establishment is 100 or more. So it is going to be applicable on large enterprises only. Okay, I told you what is standing order. It is nothing more than the written terms and condition or common rules that is going to be applicable on each and every employee, which is related with work condition, disciplinary action, employees right. Okay, so standing order will carry three attributes. It will carry the rules, common rules related with working condition, common rules related with employees right, and common rule related with disciplinary action, right? It will build uniformity in working condition. It will lead to protection of the worker by the exploitation by the employer. It will build transparency, and it will build industrial peace. So whenever I am talking about standing order, it is nothing more than the list of detailed terms and condition, which is going to be equitably and commonly applicable on all the worker who is working within the establishment. It includes a working condition, it includes employees right, it includes disciplinary action. It will build uniformity, it will lead to protection, transparency and industrial peace, right? I told you it is going to be applicable on all the industrial establishment where the number of worker working within the previous year in any day exceeds 100 or more, right? Appropriate government can, by giving an appropriate notice of 2 months, same like payment of bonus act, can get it applied over any other establishment where the number of employees are less than 100 or workers are less than 100. It is not applicable on Bombay industrial relationship Bombay, because in Bombay and MP there is a separate law for the same, and it is not going to be applicable on central government controlled enterprises because for them they are having a proper norm for the same thing. So not applicable on Bombay, not applicable on Madhya Pradesh, not applicable on central government controlled organization, right? Defense and railway pay, this is not going to be applicable. Appropriate government can exempt under this regulation, under this law, fully and partially based on your written request for public interest. Same like bonus act, right? The standing order need to be certified, and once the standing order would become certified, it would become statute. It would not be treated as just a matter of contract. It would become statute. Contravention of any provision of standing order will be treated as contravention of law, not contravention of contract. Got my point? Certifying officer is nothing more than the labor commissioner who is going to register or certify your standing order. Once this act will become applicable upon you, within the period of 6 months, you need to get your standing order done with the mutual negotiation with the trade union, labor union, or with the mutual negotiation with the workers if you are not having any trade union. within the period of 6 months you have to get it ready and put it in front of the certifying officer. For that 6 months you would be subject matter of mortal standing order. Okay, that has been provided under schedule 1 to this act. Is it clear? You have to submit the 5 copies of draft standing order with the certifying officer along with the list of all employees and trade union, so that they can send the communication before certification to the trade union and employees for raising objections. Model standing order is nothing more than the standing order which is applicable once the act would become applicable upon you, until and unless you'll get your standing order certified, right? He would be responsible. The certifying officer has to act as a judge, and he should make sure that all the terms and condition in the standing order should be fair and reasonable. So he'll check the fairness and reasonableness of each and every terms and condition that are the part of what standing order, right? He can demand for change, he can demand for addition of certain more points on standing order. It is judicial authority, and I told you certifying officer, he has to check fairness and reasonableness of each and every terms and condition that is the part of the standing order, right? Any item can only be added in the uh, standing order which is not the part of the schedule with the approval of the appropriate government. Draft standing order will be sent to the employees and worker. For the period of 15 days they can raise objections. After sorting out the objection, the copy of certified standing order will be sent to the employee and employer within the period of 7 days. So 15 days objection period will be available for the workman to object about any provisions in the standing order. Once the order will be certified, it will become law. It would not be treated as what mere contract, right? Certifying officer would maintain a register of what all certified standing orders. If you are unhappy with the certification of standing order, you can prefer an appeal within the period of 30 days to the appellate tribunal or appellate authority established under this act. And after that, appellate authority will communicate to you after resolving your appeal within the period of 7 days whether the whether the standing order has been certified or not. And if it is certified, it would become applicable within the period of 7 days. Okay. Appeal can be filed within the period of 30 days. Getting my point, students? It would become applicable within the period after 30 days from the date of certification by certifying officer, and it would become applicable from 7 days from the date of appeal, order of appeal. It need to be put in the conspicuous place of the office building or establishment building so that everybody can read about the terms and condition, working conditions, penalties, right, applicable on them. Any modification in certifying standing order require mutual consent of the employer and employee, right? In a year you can get it modified maximum for 2 times. There should be a minimum gap of 6 months between 2 modifications. Same procedure, you have to file 5 copies, you have to submit, and modification need to be certified. And if you are not happy with the modification, you may prefer an appeal to the appellate tribunal within 30 days. So same procedure related with what, students? Related with certification will be applicable. Okay, 5 copies, objection, 15 days and all. Now what is subsistence allowance? Suppose if you are being terminated from your job because some inquiry or investigation is going on against you. So as inquiry and investigation is going against you, it doesn't mean that employer is not responsible to pay you anything. He is required to pay you subsistence allowance, that is nothing more than the maintenance allowance till the inquiry or investigation or inspection is going on. For the first 90 days he is responsible to pay you 50% of your salary. After that, if they are extending that investigation for more than 90 days, they are required to pay 75%. 75% of your salary and wages. And if any other law is providing for better subsistence allowance, that law will become applicable. Okay. In standing order need to be interpreted as a law, and the interpretation will be done by the interpretation would be done by the labor court. Got my point, students? What I am teaching you, I am teaching you standing order act, right? Subsistence allowance is what? As per rule 10A, section 10A, it is required if an employee has been terminated because of any investigation, inquiry or inspection for first 90 days, he is eligible for 50% pay, and for beyond 90 days he is eligible for 75% pay. A better if any other law is providing for better subsistence allowance, that law will prevail, right? What all are the topics that is going to be there in a standing order? Classification of workmen, work details, shift working, attendance and late coming, leave and holidays, entry requirement, termination, misconduct. These all basic terms and condition of employment would be the part of standing order. Is it clear? Now there were one case which is not related with all those standing order act, but it has been asked that I have posted an resignation. It has been accepted by the management, but management haven't communicated the acceptance of resignation letter. And I got to know that my resignation has already been accepted. Now I am revoking my resignation by sending another letter, by showing that I am not aware whether it is being accepted or not. So because they haven't communicated the acceptance of the resignation letter, in that situation um, you cannot withdraw your resignation. Got my point? You cannot withdraw your resignation. Once you have resigned, now you cannot take it back because they haven't communicated the acceptance of your resignation. Suspension ka same question they have. If you are being suspended, will you be eligible for subsistence allowance? Definitely yes. 50% for the first 90 days. After that you will be eligible for 75%, right? Same suspension ka question they have asked. Can an employee be terminated from the job without conducting a proper in-department inquiry and without giving him a reasonable opportunity of being heard? No. So, an insurance company employee was usually absent from his duty without giving justification reason. So, he has been served a notice, and after that, he has been terminated without any departmental inquiry. So, that is unjust, and it is leading to injustice. You should conduct an in-department inquiry and should provide reasonable opportunity of being heard before termination of the employee. Is it clear? Subsistence allowance, manageable, right? If you are harassing any employee or your colleague or your senior manager because he has not given you leave and you are taking revenge against him in a public place, it will be treated as misconduct, employment misconduct. Where it has been taken, it doesn't matter. If the misconduct is having direct connectivity with your job, it will be treated as employment misconduct. Is it clear? Standing order, if not been certified, modulus standing order is going to be applicable, right? Miss standing order want to modify within 3 months from the last modification. Minimum 6-month gap is mandatory, right? Again, suspension and subsistence allowance. Now, earlier retirement age was 60 years. Later on, they have made it 58 years. Any change in the standing order detrimental to the interest of the employee cannot be possible without taking the consent of trade union, right? वैसे भी any change in the standing order does require what? Approval of, does require approval of whom, beta? It does require approval of the not consent of the workman or trade union, right? So we have done with 2 chapters, right? We have done with Equal Remuneration Act, and along with that we have done with Standing Order Act. Notes will be provided with the marathon, so don't worry, you can refer notes accordingly, right? And notes are more than sufficient, right? Continuing with labor laws. So today's topic is going to be Industrial Dispute Act. So the question will come, what is exactly Industrial Dispute Act? See, whenever we talk about industrial relationship, we do talk about a relationship between employer and employee. Industry can work with the proper productivity or with optimum productivity if the relationship between workers and the employer would be good, right? If they would be into a conflict, or they would be into any kind of dispute, or there are certain differences, they are not happy in terms of terms and condition of employment, if the employees are, and the dispute may related with employment, non-employment, or terms and condition of employment. So whatsoever is, it will lead to suffering of the concerned firm, because the firm could not produce without the support of the employees. And if employees are not happy and there would be a conflict, we can say that they would not work with their proper productivity, right? So it is the duty of the government, it is the duty of the state legislature as well as Parliament of India to have a proper law or a proper mechanism, a law that will provide for proper mechanism, that if there would be a dispute between employer and employee, how it is going to be resolved, right? So it is according to the directive principle of state policy, first thing is. And second, see, if two people are working together, multiple people are working together, human beings are working together, disputes are bound to happen. You cannot ignore, you cannot say that there would be no dispute at all and there would be always a green signal in the enterprise. There would be certain events when they will face a kind of issues between them, conflict between them. So there is a need to have a proper law that will provide for the proper resolution of their dispute, where to means this act is going to tell you that what all codes are there when it comes to industrial dispute over here in this enactment, and how the disputes are going to be resolved, what would be the time period of filing the dispute, how the disputes are going to be resolved, what would be the procedure. And remember students, nowadays government is running behind EDR, that is called Alternative Dispute Resolution Mechanism. So even under this act, they'll first try to get the dispute resolved by adopting alternative dispute resolution rather than approaching to the court. And what is alternative dispute resolution? It's a simple concept. Why to bother court every now and then? Court ka protocol is going to be quite expensive and it is going to be time consuming. So it would not be good for anyone, not for the employer or not for the employee. So rather than approaching the court, why not to approach alternative dispute resolution mechanism, that is arbitrator, conciliator, negotiator, who will make the parties sit together and will try to resolve their dispute through mutual negotiation rather than ruling. Got my point? Is it clear? That is called what? Industrial Dispute Act. Got my point? So the first basic objective of this act is to provide for proper protocol for investigation and settlement of dispute. See settlement. Whenever we are talking about resolving a dispute, resolution can be done by two methods, ruling or settlement. What is ruling? Ruling is nothing more than we are resolving the dispute by judicial intervention, means court is going to resolve the dispute by passing an order. And what is settlement? Settlement is nothing more than one party will act as an intermediary. Both the disputed party will sit together and will resolve their dispute through settlement. Okay, so first they'll talk about settlement, then if the things will not work out, then they'll talk about ruling. Got my point? And investigation is like if something is being happened, it is subject matter of certain investigation to choose to collect the evidences. So investigation is not a judicial proceeding. It is not a proceeding pertaining to resolution of dispute. It is an administrative proceeding pertaining to collection of evidences if something wrong has been happened. Basic objective is to build good, healthy relationship between employer and employee, prevent illegal strike and lockouts, and dispute resolution, to provide for investigation and dispute resolution mechanism pertaining to industry. It is itself a self-contained code, so it is more than sufficient if there would be any industrial dispute to use it to resolve the dispute. Applicable over all industries irrespective of whatever structure they are into. Now, as this is a marathon, I cannot cover every point very broadly, but I'll try to cover it. So, what is industry? Whenever a particular entity is satisfying any of the all of the three conditions, they will be treated as what? Industry. There should be an organized or a systematic activity, whether it is being conducted on consistently or conducted with intermittently. Even intermittent industry would come under the definition of industry, like industry of woolen working, only 4 months in a 4 to 5 months in a year, but still it will come under the definition of industry. There should be a systematic activity. It can be profit oriented industry, it can be a not for profit organization, so even not for profit organization would come under the definition of industry. And it should be focused on activity, means there should be a relationship of employer and employee. So for example, if being a company secretary, I am having a firm and I am having 4 or 5 partners, we are working together, so partners will not constitute employer and employee relationship, so we are not being classified as an industry. So there are 3 conditions to constitute an industry. There should be a systematic activity conducted on continuous basis or in intermittent basis. Second, profit purpose is totally irrelevant. It doesn't matter whether you are running a business for profit or not for profit. And the third one is there should be an employer and employee relationship. Got my point? If all 3 conditions will be satisfied, this act is going to be applicable on you. Got my point, students? Charitable hospital, private school, cooperative society, research institute, these will come under the definition of what? Industry. Got my point? But they have given certain exclusion, express exclusion to something that would not come under the definition of industry. And as they are not coming under the definition of industry, their dispute cannot be resolved under this act. So agriculture operations will be out of the definition of industry. Hospital and dispensaries, educational institution, charitable institution, khadi and village industries, sovereign governmental functions like defense, atomic energy, domestic services, that is maids and all, professional with less than 10 employees. So remember, you have to just keep in your mind, when it comes to industry, there are 3 conditions that need to be satisfied. First, systematic activity, profit motive doesn't matter. Third, there should be an employer and employee relationship to discharge certain functions, right? If 3 conditions will be satisfied, you will come under the definition of industry. And if there would be any dispute between employer and employee, employer and employer, employee and employee, this is going to be resolved by Industrial Dispute Act. But they are clearly stating that there are certain entities like professional having number of employees less than 10 would not come under the definition of industry, like hospital, educational institutions, dispensary, khadi and village industries, governmental sovereign department would be out of the definition of industry. So if there would be a dispute, it is not going to be resolved under this act. Is it clear? Now what is strike, beta? There is a difference between strike and lockout. this is nothing more than a vehicle of bargaining, tool of bargaining. I can say that if the employer is not, if the employer is not bothered about your demands, he is not willing to change in terms and condition, all the workers will collectively go for a cessation of work, they'll completely, shut down the working, they'll not come for working at all, they are sitting outside the organization, but they are not willing to work at all. So that is called strike. So you are getting into strike in order to exercise your bargaining power, right? Whereas when it comes to lockout, when the workers are becoming over demanding, and because of the trouble they have created over the employer has temporarily closed down their business organization and not willing to allow any work to anyone. So that is called lockout. Okay. So strike is being conducted by the employees, initiative taken by the employee. Lockout is going to be an initiative taken by the employer. In both the cases, mandatory requirement is cessation of work. If the employees are coming within the organization and they are going go slow strike, means they'll start doing work with a very slow pace. It is not at all strike, because in order to have a strike or a lockout, cessation of work is mandatory requirement. So there should be a cessation of work, and it should be done by concerted refusal. Okay, it should be done by the concerted refusal. Mass casual leave will also constitute strike. Okay, you should be the part of that industry, means if your job has been terminated and you are into a strike, that would not constitute a strike, because you are not into a relationship of employer and employee, right? But if you are being suspended illegally, it's a suspension, so it will be treated as there is a relationship of employer and employee, and it will be constituted as strike. Okay, if you are presenting in the strike route, it doesn't mean that you are the part of the strike until and unless you will cease your work. Cessation of work is very important. Sympathetic strike will come under the definition of strike. So types of strike is not at all important. Important thing is what, students, I have mentioned each and every type of strike, definition of strike, and the strike with the lockout is very important. Okay, now there are two parameters of strike. One is legal strike. If the strike has been conducted strictly according to the requirement of this act, without any breach of any provision of this act, it will be a legal strike. But when it comes to justified strike, if your demands are justified, if your demands are reasonable, your strike will be treated as justified strike. If your demands are unjustified, you are asking for anything which is not at all justified, it will be treated as unjustified strike. So remember, when a dispute will be submitted in front of the industrial court, they'll check two parameters of your strike: whether you have get into strike by complying the requirement of this act very properly, then you will be classified as a legal strike. But they'll also consider the demands that you have made. If your demands are reasonable enough, it will be treated as justified, otherwise it will be treated as unjustified strike. Okay, so got my point? So fact based is the justification, law based is legality. Is it clear? It is a question of law when it comes to legality, it is a question of fact when it comes to justifiability. And when it comes to combination of both the things, you are going to get full payment for the strike period, right? If your strike is legal and justified, you are going to get 100% payment. Otherwise the court will determine that how much payment should be given to you if you got into illegal but justified, legal but unjustified strike. Is it clear? Got my point, students? Lockout is something that is, again, both are temporary. It is suspension of work by the employer, right? Even it can be justified and legal, right? I have made a proper difference between strike and lockout. This is very important, even we have discussed it, right? Now they are putting a legal provision. They are saying that if any conciliation is going on, or if the conciliation has came out with a settlement within the period of 7 days from the date of settlement, or if a dispute is going on in industrial court and it is being resolved for a period of next 2 months, from the date of resolution. And in case of arbitration, even for the period of 2 months, you cannot get into strike or lockout. What they are saying that, first, if there is some conciliation going on with the conciliator for the settlement, you cannot get into strike on that period. Once the settlement has been done by the conciliator, for a period of next 7 days, you cannot get into strike or lockout. If you are into any dispute submitted with the industrial court or with the arbitrator during the proceeding of arbitration or industrial court, you cannot get into strike or lockout, and for a period of next 2 months, you cannot get into it. Is it clear? Period where strike is not at all allowed. I have given the summary as well. Okay. Now they are saying that if you are into a public utility services, you have to give minimum 6 weeks ka notice before getting into strike. Okay, minimum 6 week ka notice is necessary, and re-intimation of 14 days is necessary. What they are saying that you have to just you are planning to go for a strike, need to be notified at least 6 weeks before getting into strike. And it's when it's finally determined that you are going to be in a strike, then you have to give one more notice, that is 14 days ka notice for getting into strike. Okay, got my point? 6 weeks advance notice and 14 days ka minimum gap should be there between giving your strike notice and from on the date of strike. Got my point? 6 weeks and 14 days. 6 weeks notice, 14 days should be minimum gap, right? And whatever date that has been decided for strike, you cannot prepone it to less than 14 days. And this is for public utility services. Once the strike has been initiated, you cannot, you need not to give any notice. Is it clear? Legal strike and justified and unjustified strike I have taught you. Now what is layoff? When it comes to layoff, they are saying that if the employee is willing to work but you are having shortage of material, your stock pile up is there, or machinery issues or technical issues are there, or natural disaster is there, it will be treated as what? Layoff. It will be treated as what? Layoff. You are not getting work for a day. So if you are being laid off, you have to wait for minimum period of 2 hours. If within 2 hours he is not able to provide you the work, it will be treated as it was a full day layoff and you will be eligible for full payment. Is it clear? Financial issue cannot be justifiable reason for layoff. These logical reason can only be justification of layoff. Layoff is different from lockout. Layoff is like because you are having piled up stock or you are having some machinery failure. It is not an action taken in order to resist the employee's demand, right? Retrenchment is what? When your employment is totally terminated, that is called what? Retrenchment, right? A proper notice and reasonable opportunity of being heard should be provided to the employee in case of retrenchment, right? But voluntary retirement is not a retrenchment. Retirement or superannuation is not a retrenchment. Contract expiry is not a retrenchment, and ill health is not a retrenchment. 4 things are not a retrenchment. If you are voluntarily retiring, if you are retiring due to age, if you are, that is called superannuation. If you are retiring because your contract has been expired, or it is being retired because of ill health of the concerned employee for a very longer period of time. Termination is retrenchment, and it's any disciplinary action taken by the employer and terminated the job will be treated as what? Retrenchment, and employee will be eligible for compensation. Is it clear? Railways, ports, industrial safety, postal communication, power and utility will be treated as public utility services, and if you are willing to get into strike in that services, 6 weeks notice and 14 days notice is mandatory, right? Otherwise your strike will become what? Illegal, right? Work committee has been constituted under this act. Work committee is going to be constituted by industrial establishment. Any industrial establishment having number of 100 or more worker have to constitute what? Work committee. If you can remember, in the last standing order act, we got to know that even they need to prepare or form their standing order as well, right? If they are having number of employees 100 and more, right? Work committee will internally try to resolve the matter, right? Then the second authority established under this act is conciliation officer, and this is going to be appointed by the government, right? Who will try to conciliate the issues between employer or employee, right? Then board of conciliation is that, where one chairman and 2 other members will be there. They will be involved in investigation as well as fair settlement of the dispute between employer and employee, right? Then code of inquiry is a proper court headed by the chairman having judicial background, right? And they have to investigate the matter and resolve, come into the resolution or submit their report within the period of 6 months. So it is going to be a fast track court, okay? It is going to be a fast track court, okay? So authority that has been established under this act is, first one is work committee, that is going to be constituted by the employer. It is nothing more than a committee that has been constituted in combination of employer and employee representative, and they'll try to resolve the dispute mutually, right? Now if you're not happy, then you can approach conciliation officer. If there is a need to investigate the matter and then resolve, then you have to approach board of conciliation, right? And if not satisfied, then you can approach court of inquiry, which is a fast track court, which is going to resolve that matter within the period of 6 months, right? And there is a labor court, right, where the person who is sitting in the labor court will be high court judge or a district court judge, right? And they are the proper court, right? No fixed timeline, they are like a civil court, so they will take appropriate time to resolve the dispute. And then industrial tribunal is there, okay? So these are the authorities that has been established under this act. Is it clear? National tribunal is also there. But I have seen that institute used to ask questions pertaining to the strike, pertaining to the lockout, pertaining to the dispute. They never asked, hardly they have asked about the authorities established under this act, okay? So I have given the summary as well. The conciliation board have to resolve the dispute within the period of 3 months, and court of inquiry has to resolve the dispute within the period of 6 months, right? If you have initiated a dispute with the arbitrator will resolve the dispute. And if the case is pending with the arbitrator, you cannot submit it to the industrial court, okay? We have done with what, students? We have done with the quick review of Industrial Dispute Act, which is more than sufficient. The things that I have covered: focus on strike, focus on lockout, focus on reference of the dispute, focus on rules related with strike and dispute, focus on the definition of industry and all, right? Whatever is being covered, that is more than sufficient to cover the chapter at this point of time, okay? airline workers are willing to get into strike, what they have to do, they have to give at least 6 weeks का notice, right? Laid off worker, a worker has been laid off and he has been offered for alternate work for the same day, so he has to wait for a minimum period of 2 hours, but there are certain more rules about alternate work. You can provide him alternate work within the same city, town and village. There should be maximum 5 meal ka difference, 5 miles ka difference between the main establishment and the other establishment, then he would be bound to go for the alternate employment. Means if the organization is having 2 factories, one is in Dadar and another is in Sion, if there is no work in Dadar, they can send their worker to Sion. If the workers are reluctant to go to Sion, they will not be eligible for layoff compensation. Okay, but the condition should be what? You should have logical reason for layoff from Dadar, and the gap between the distance between Dadar and Sion should not be more than 5 kilometers, right? Legal strike will not make you eligible for the salary. You may get subject to justification, right? Fact and circumstances of the cases, right? Again, layoff question is there. These are CES final के questions, so certain questions may be, you know, out of the box from your study material, but I have covered it up because earlier labor law was the part of CS professional. One worker got died due to cardiac arrest. Now the workers are not willing to work and want to get into sympathetic strike. Will it constitute a strike? Yes, it will constitute sympathetic strike, or temporary cessation of work would constitute strike, right? Now there is a firm where the number of employees are less than 10. This is a lawyer's ka firm. Will it constitute strategy or not? So answer would be no. If the number of worker in a professional firm, CACA, CMA firm, lawyer firms is less than 10, then it won't be a right. Same, it won't be a industry, right? The second one is same, that sympathetic strike is strike or not. Financial losses are there and they just wanted to lay off people. Financial loss cannot be a reason of logical layoff, right? Right? Retrenchment due to amalgamation, you have to pay reasonable opportunity of being heard, and you have to provide for proper retrenchment compensation, right? Sympathetic strike is a strike. Again and again they have asked sympathetic strike, right? Reorganization and termination, you have to pay the retrenchment compensation, right? Or employee suffering from ill health and he has been retrenched, will it amount to retrenchment? No. Ill health, voluntary retirement is not what? Retrenchment, if you can remember, student, right? Copy of settlement need to be submitted to the government within the period of 3 months. If it has not been submitted within the period of 3 months, settlement would become what? Illegal. Is it clear? This we have gone through with that 3-month ka clause, but it would become illegal is being clarified over here, right? Layoff is your entitlement if there is less demand, right? But law, in case of loss, layoff is not your statutory entitlement, right? only a trade union member can raise the dispute with the employer if he is the employee, because they need to have a relationship of employer and employee in order to have a industrial dispute, right? Now there is a big case study, students, but all points we have covered already, because earlier in CS professional 20 or 30 mark ka case study they used to ask. Okay, done. We have done with what? Industrial dispute. So if you are having any doubt, feel free to put comments. We will resolve your doubts. Okay, now we will start with another. We have done with, I think, chapter number 17 part 1 and part 2. Part 2 is already done, that is Standing Order Act, right? Now we will start with chapter number 19, that is Social Security Legislation. Today we are going to finish what? Employee State Insurance Act as well. Okay, starting with Employee State Insurance Act. So when it comes to Employee State Insurance Act, it is nothing more than an act which makes mandatory to have a kind of contribution to be made by employer, and few minor contribution to be made and made for an employee in order to take care of their health insurance. Okay, it is all about accidental insurance and health insurance. Okay, students, accidental and health insurance, so that if some accident would happen, he would not bother about, employee would not bother about the medical expenses, and if there would be an occupational illness or something would happen, he would not bother about what? The medical expenses associated. Okay, applicable on all factories. Governmental factory would be out of the scope because they are having already a proper provision for the same. Appropriate government by giving a notice to an establishment can get it applicable over them as well, but 1 month ka notice is mandatory. It's same like, if you can remember, same rule for 2 months is there for Bonus Act and for the Standing Order Act, right? There is a proper corporation established under this act, ESIC, that is Employee State Insurance Corporation, with whom the employer is bound to put the contribution amount. It is being applicable on all the other shops and establishment where the number of employees are 20 or more. Same like Bonus Act, right? Even Bonus Act is applicable with all the establishment other than factories where the number of employees are 20 or more. And the very important thing is, appropriate government by giving the notice of 1 month can get it applicable on other establishment as well, right? It's all about what? And once the act will become applicable, it is going to be applicable everywhere, because once applicable for all. Right, they'll cover maternity related expenses too. What is employment injury? Employment injury is nothing more than an injury that has been caused out of employment or during the course of employment, and it is not necessary that the injury need to be caused within the establishment while working in the establishment or something. Even if you are out for the work of the establishment, if there is a direct connection or an access between your employment and injury, it will be classified as an employment injury, and you would be eligible for what? Compensation under this act, right? Notional extension of employment means there should be a connection between injury and the employment, right? Even if the employee is subject matter of negligence, supervision is the duty of the employer. So even if there would be an injury caused by the negligence of the employee, you would be eligible for the compensation. Is it clear? Negligence will not make him ineligible to get the compensation. Even mental injury will come under the definition of injury that is not visible on the face, but definitely it's there. Immediate employer is nothing more than an employer of the contracted labor. Okay, so if suppose I have been appointed in a company not directly by the employer, but he is being appointed by the contractor, the company for which I am working will be immediate employer and the contractor would be my ultimate employer, right? But if the contractor is not capable enough to perform whatever is being the duty of him, it is the duty of the immediate employer to take care of the employee employment compensation. Only those employees whose salary is up to 21,000, same like bonus act, is eligible for this contribution. Okay. Sorry, principal employer is a person for whom you are working. An immediate employer would be your contractor. Okay. Factory means any premises or part thereof where manufacturing processes are going on and minimum 10 persons are working therein, then they will be classified as factory. Okay, there is a proper definition of factory over here. Okay, premises or precinct thereof where minimum number of employee working are 10 or more and they are into manufacturing process, right? Contractor will be immediate employer. I made a mistake in explanation. Remember, contractor is the immediate employer and the principal employer is the person for whom you are working. Now there are disablement. When it comes to disablement, no beta, there are two kinds of disablement: permanent and temporary. Okay, permanent and temporary. So whenever we are talking about permanent disablement, if the injury has caused such kind of impact on your job that you are not capable to perform any job you were capable enough to perform before the injury, it will be a permanent disablement. If you are only not capable enough to perform something which is you are doing, that is a specific employment that you were doing at the time of injury, that is called temporary employment. Repeating it again. Permanent means what? You have lost capacity to perform any job you were capable enough to perform before the injury is permanent. Temporary is something when you are not capable enough to perform that particular job that you were doing, but other job you can, that is called temporary. Is it clear? So suppose if a driver will met with an accident and he lost his one hand, so he would not be capable enough to perform driver ka job, but he can perform the job of the conductor, right? So it will be a temporary disablement because a specific work or a job cannot be done by the employee, right? That is called temporary. If he would not be, if he lost his eyesight, now he cannot perform conductor ka job, driver ka job or any job, it will be a permanent disablement. So permanent is all about in all employment, temporary is on specific employment, right? And if your earning capacity, and when it comes to total and partial, partial means it has caused loss. Total means it has caused 100% loss of employment opportunity, means you cannot earn at all. Or if it has reduced your earning capacity, that is called partial. Is it clear? Let's combine now for the four concepts. First, again I am repeating it. When it comes to permanent disablement, it is nothing more than after the injury you are not at all capable enough to perform any job that you were capable enough to perform before injury. If you are like good for nothing, right, it is permanent. If you are good for only, if you are not good for the specific job but you are good for other job, that is called temporary. Okay, total means your earning capacity has become zero. Temporary means your earning capacity is reduced but it is not zero. Is it clear? So what is permanent? Now let's match. What is permanent total disablement? In all job your capacity has become zero. What is permanent temporary permanent partial disablement? It is in all jobs your earning capacity has been reduced. Temporary total means what, students? Temporary total means what? Temporary total is in a specific job your earning capacity has become zero. Temporary partial is what? In that specific job your earning capacity has been reduced. So can I say that in permanent total disablement maximum compensation will be paid, in temporary partial disablement minimum compensation will be given, right? Got my point, students? Sickness is nothing more than any kind, even an influenza or flu or back pain would come under sickness, right? Seasonal factory is a factory which is involved in cotton ginning or jute pressing, which is working less than 7 months in a year, but I don't think these all are important. Every establishment which is coming under this act has to get themselves registered with the Employee State Insurance Corporation, right? An employee state corporation is going to be constituted by central government, right? It will take the funds from organization or employer and put it into certain investments in order to secure the health cover of the employee, right? Or accident cover or health cover of the employee, right? And this corporation is going to be managed by two committees. One is standing committee. It will take care of their investment and administration and finances. And when it comes to medical committee, it will go ahead with medical examination of the employee who has got into sickness or illness or injury. Okay, so medical matters will be taken care by the medical benefit committee, and a standing committee will take care of administration and finances. A fund has been constituted, and this fund is nothing more than the fund that has been constituted by the contributions, and out of which the fund maintenance cost, employees cost will be deducted, right? And it is going to be managed by the standing committee of the ESIC, right? Now, how much contribution you have to do? You have to make, employer has to make 3.25% of the salary or wages of the employee, and 0.75% will be made by the employee. Okay, so total contribution will be 4%, out of which majority percentage has been done by whom? The employer, and the minority percentage has been done by the employee, right? So every month 4% of the salary of all your employees drawing salary up to 21,000 has to be deposited with ESIC, right? 0.75% will be deducted from the employee salary, and 3.25% will be added by the employer, and it is going to be deposited with the ESIC, right? Whose responsibility it is to deduct that amount is of principal employer. Got my point? He can deduct it and he can recover it back from the immediate employer, that is contractor. But the duty to deposit that contribution lies with principal employer. You have to keep records of all the payment that has been made to the ESIC. Now benefits, you will get sickness benefit, maternity benefit, disablement payment, dependent benefit, okay, medical care, even funeral expenses will be paid out of this. Okay. So your dad, disability, maternity, sickness, right, injury, everything has been covered under this act, right? There is a proper code for this. The benefit payable under this act is not transferable, but in case of death of employee, benefit will be paid to whom? The successor, right? There is a proper code under this act. If you are unhappy with relation to any matter related with ESIC, you can approach this court, okay? If in your enterprise some better act has been applicable than ESI Act, that act will prevail, okay? If your employer is not depositing your ESI contribution, you can approach ESI court and you can directly file a claim against your employer. Even negligence will give you an entitlement for the injury, right? Compensation for the injury, right? They have asked a question on salary and wages का definition. Salary and wages include basic pay plus DA plus food concession. It does not include traveling allowance. So compensation calculation के लिए traveling allowance is not going to be included. If you are working in a canteen is being taken up by the contractor, the principal employer will be responsible for ESIC contribution, right? If the employer has deputed you to play a football match, any injury caused there even will create a kind of connection between game and the employment. It will be treated as what? Notional extension of employment, and will be treated as what? Student employment injury, right? Remember, if the employee is sick, you cannot terminate an employee. If sickness is due to employment sickness, okay, during sickness you cannot terminate any employee under this act. Is it clear? If your way to your employment, it will be treated as what, beta? No employment injury at all. Got my point, students? What I'm teaching you, ESI, right? If there would be an accident happened at customer place and you are there to perform your job, it will be treated as an employment injury, right? You haven't paid ESIC contribution, ESI contribution as an employer. Can they demand for the same? Yes, even if there is a due of more than 5 years, they can demand the same, right? Because it is the duty of the employer to pay the ESI contribution, right? So it took hardly 15 minutes and we have done with what? Employee State Insurance Act, that is chapter number 19 part 1. Right now in the second part we will go ahead with EPF, that is Employees Provident Fund Act, and I think this is more than enough. Provident Fund, small act they are. Just a minute, students. Okay, so we'll go ahead with Employees Provident Fund Act. Okay, and your significant part of chapter 19 will be over. We have done with chapter number 18 full. We have done with chapter number 17 full. Now we have picked up chapter number 19. We'll finish that. Then chapter number 20 is all about POSH, and chapter number 14 and 15 is 14 is Constitution and 15 is labor codes. Okay, starting with EPF, that is Employees Provident Fund Act, where I think most of, when it comes to ESIC, they used to ask so many questions from Employee State Insurance Act, but when it comes to EPF, they are not asking much question from EPF. What is Employees Provident Fund? It does talk about three things. Okay, first one is Employees Provident Fund, that will secure your post retirement period, that how much you are going to get. Means every month you have to make certain contribution. Here when it comes to contribution, employee will make 10% or more contribution of their salary, but employer is bound to make contribution 10% only. Okay, not more than 10%. Minimum 10%, that is the maximum 10% contribution is mandatory. That is state contribution 10%. So this 10% will be deducted. The employee will make a contribution of 10%, 20%, 30%, whatever they want. That amount is going to be deducted from his gross salary, and by adding the 10% contribution of the employer, it is going to be deposited with Employees Provident Fund Corporation. Okay, PFIs. Okay, Employees Provident Fund Corporation, EPFC, and they are going to manage it, right? And once you will get retired or in between your employment, if you want a kind of withdrawal from that fund, you can withdraw it and use it. So it is like securing your retirement. Okay, so one is EPF, the second one is over here is a pension fund, where you can make a contribution over pension fund too. Your employer can make contribution over your pension fund too. So once you will retire, you will start getting monthly pensions, right? The third one is employee state. Third one is deposit linked insurance scheme, when you will be provided with the life cover. Okay, so three schemes are there. One is PF scheme. I'm so sorry, PF scheme. The one is, just a minute, students. One is PF scheme. The second one is pension scheme. Okay, and the third one is what, students? The third one is state insurance scheme, right? State insurance scheme. Okay, state insurance scheme. So it is going to be applicable on every establishment where the number of employees are 20 or more. Okay, Even in factories, minimum number of employees required are 20. Okay, so three schemes are there. I told you, provident fund scheme, pension fund scheme, and deposit linked life insurance scheme. That is, it is a life cover. Okay, this is employee pension fund. It is monthly pension, right? And this is retirement benefit, right? Again, that it is going to be applicable on all the establishment, including factory having number of employees 20 or more. Remember, in bonus act and in bonus act there were no requirement to have 20 employees in case of factory, but here it is clearly mentioned that minimum 20 employees should be there even in case of factory, right? Appropriate government by giving 2 month ka notice can get it applicable on you, right? And you have to comply with the requirement, right? Once applicable, will applicable forever, right? Every labor laws are like that, right? But if you will get into demerger and now you are not having even a one single employee, that demerger will lead to creation of new establishment that may become not applicable on you, right? So there should be an employee to continue with the provision of this act, right? This act is not going to be applicable over cooperative society, governmental controlled enterprise. So this is quite very logical. Almost all labor laws are not going to be applicable on what beta governmentally controlled enterprises or departments, because they are having better benefit than this. Cooperative society, but it is not going to be applicable if the number of employees are less than 50. Okay. Central government can exempt with the requirement of this act if your financial conditions are not meeting out, right? On a special request. It's same like bonus payment, right? Appropriate government is a rule making government. Basic pay include that is salary include basic pay plus DA, right? But does not include cash value of food concession, right? House rent allowance and all, right? Employee Provident Fund scheme. I told you it is going to be managed by the Board of Trustees of Provident Fund institution, right? Employer has to record everything about, contribution made and contribution amount, right? Excluded employees, a very important thing. They are not eligible for provident fund contribution if their monthly pay is more than 15,000. 21,000 is the limit for state insurance and bonus. Here the limit is more than 15,000. So up to 15,000 you are eligible. Then if you are already contributing to the provident fund and you have made withdrawal of entire amount, you would become excluded employee. Okay. Even apprentice is not eligible for the contribution. So excluded employee include three persons. The first person is what? Student. Who would be the first person? First person would be who has already withdrawn their EPF amount. Second one is apprentice. Third one is having salary more than 15,000 per month, right? I told you 10% contribution of basic pay, DA plus retaining allowance, right? Would be made by employer. An employee can increase this amount but they cannot decrease that amount, right? Can increase that amount, I'm so sorry, right? But employer is not bound to match up that amount, right? Board of Trustees are going to manage this fund and they'll make it invested over sovereign securities or whatsoever for the better benefit of the employee. This is very important question. What kind of advances you can take from this fund? You can take for paying your insurance premium, for purchasing your house, if your factory is being closed for 2 months or more, right? More than 15 months up to 2 months, okay? Other than strike, okay? If you are hospitalized or your relatives are hospitalized, okay? For marriage and education of your children, for electricity supply cut, for property damage of the employer due to earthquake or something, okay? If you are unable to repay your loan, or for handicapped equipment, you have to learn 5-6 things for which you can take non-refundable advance for making payment of your insurance premium, for electricity cut, for health issues, right? Advance for housing, If the factory remains closed for a continuous period for more than 15 days and you are not getting salaries, right, you can withdraw amount, right. Final withdrawal is possible in case of death, superannuation, retrenchment, voluntary retirement, industrial dispute. These are the final settlement you will get. Is it clear? So few things are mandatory to learn. Employee provident fund mein first one is contribution amount, second one is advance, and the third one is final withdrawal. Okay. If female members because of marriage is shifting, they will be provided with 2 month period to get transferred with the new employer. Okay. For pension, minimum contributory service should be 10 years. Okay, then you will be eligible for pension. Okay. Pension even will be start paying after superannuation, retirement, permanent total disablement, death during the service, children pension and orphan pension is also there. Okay. Superannuation age for pension would be 58 years. There is a proper appellate tribunal created which is equivalent to civil court. If you are having any dispute related with provident fund, you can approach to the labor court, and if not satisfied, you can approach to the provident fund appellate tribunal. Okay. And if your employer is not paying the contribution, it will be classified as land revenue and being recovered. Okay, like a land revenue means statutory dues, and you will get priority. If it is being classified as a land revenue, you are going to get priority over all other dues. Okay. If you are transferring your job, you can get your EPF transfer to the new job. An employee who has been appointed for a just short period of 2 months for meeting out the bulk order requirement would not come under the definition of employee, and you need not to make contribution of EPF for him. Okay. Number of employees fall below 15 and they are not willing to now continue the contribution. Once applicable forever, right? You have to continue with the contribution until and unless your employee will become zero, right? There is a part-time sweeper who is working in an organization twice during the day. Will he covered under PF? Definitely he would be covered, right? A part-time worker is a worker, but a temporary worker is not a worker, right? If you are having a centralized accounting system, all your branch will be treated as covered under your PF law, right? Means if I am having one head office, then I have opened a branch and both are going to maintain not separate books, records and paper, but a combined books, records and paper or centralized accounting system is there. So branch even has to cut PF from the salary of the employee and have to submit the contribution with the EPF authorities, right? Now an employee has been retired and has withdrawn entire amount of PF. Now he has been appointed on temporary basis. Will he be covered under the definition of employee? No, he would come under the definition of what? Excluded employee, right? Casual worker is no worker at all, right? You can withdraw money for house, right? Done students. We have done with what? We have done with EPF, right? Right students. Now the Maternity Benefit Act is there, Payment of Gratuity Act is there. Apprentice is like okay enactment, not that much important. Okay, so done with one more law, that is what, PF Act. So we have done with in chapter number 19 we have done with two important laws, that is State Insurance Act and Provident Fund Act. Now I am going to cover Gratuity Act, then Simplification of Labor Law Act. Okay, so we are going to finish this as well today. Okay, starting with the another part of labor laws, that is chapter number 19, part number 6, which is labor law simplification of procedure for furnishing, return and maintaining register by certain establishment act 1988. See students, if you are involved in a small businesses and you are being provided with multiple laws or multiple labor laws that has to be satisfied, so what being an entrepreneur you will expect to do? You will focus on your work or you will focus on your compliances. So in order to make sure that now the small establishment need not to comply with the thorough provisions of the labor law, they are being provided with this law. It is providing for maintenance of one register or record only by the establishment which is being classified as a small or a very small establishment, and they need to just file one single return for compliance of all labor laws. So they need not to maintain multiplicity of records, are not necessary for them. Point number one. And point number two is what, you know, point number two is they are not required to file multiple returns related with labor laws. So okay, now there is an amendment in this act, so let me finish that amendment part as well. Means there is certain new changes has been came up. Earlier when it comes to the establishment, just a minute students, okay. Small establishment is nothing more than establishment where the number of employees are not less than 10 but up to 40, means 10 to 40 employees will come under the definition of small establishment, and up to 9% will come under the definition of very small establishment. Is it clear? What is very small establishment? Where the number of workers are up to 9. When the number of workers are 10 to 40, they will come under the definition of small establishment, right? Earlier that limit was 20 but now it has become 40. Okay, 7 more labor laws has been covered under this act, so now you need not to comply with 7 more labor laws separately, right? Single register and single return, right? It will ease compliance and better enforcement, right? It is apply on all industries, factories, workshop, plantation. Is it clear? So what all laws, they are saying that annual return has to be filed only by the small establishment, that is annual return in form number 1, and register of person employed come employment card in form number 2, and for form number 3 you have to keep wage registers. So 3 documents are there. Every year by 30th April a small enterprise has to file the annual return. Then second, you have to maintain register of person employed, that is called employment register, and the third one is wage register in form number 3. These laws has been exempted, means all the form number 1, form number 2, form number 3 will treat it as you have complied with all these 16 laws, which is Payment of Wages Act, Minimum Wages Act, Factories Act, right? Payment of Bonus Act. You can remember all those acts which is part of your syllabus, right? Contract Labor Act, Equal Remuneration Act, Child Labor Act, right? So if you have maintained form number 1, means if you have filed annual return in form number 1 and you have kept registered form number 2 and form number 3, form number 2 is employee register, form number 3 is wage register, it will be treated as you have complied with the requirement of all these 16 laws, right? For a small establishment, form number 1, 2, 3 all are mandatory, but for very small establishment only form number 1 and form number 2 is mandatory. Form number 1 is annual return on 30th April, form number 3 is wage register, means you need not to keep the register of employee because you are having number of employee up to 9 only, so what you will keep, right? Along with that you have to keep the wage slips, Slips are mandatory. Okay, record of that slips has to be maintained. So 4 things has to be maintained by a small establishment. Form number 1, that is annual return 30th April, both has to file, small and very small. Form number 2, which is employee register, just need to be kept by a small establishment, not by a very small establishment, right? Form number 3 has to be kept by both of them, that is called wage register. And the last one is what, beta? Wage slip, right? Right, students. Form number 1 can be filed electronically. If you are involved in any kind of contravention of this act, one-time penalty is 5,000. Subsequent penalty will lead to 1 to 6 month ka imprisonment and 10 to 25,000 ka penalty. Okay, okay, students. So we have done with what? Simplification of labor laws act, right? Simplification of labor laws act, and it took hardly 5 minutes to finish this chapter, right? Done, students. So giving you a quick review again. When it comes to initial stage of your business, if you are having number of employee up to 40, you can take benefit of this law, which exempts or which consolidates the compliance of 16 laws altogether, which includes all the relevant labor laws that is part of your syllabus. Payment of bonus act, payment of wages act, minimum wages act, child labor act, contract labor law, right? These all are the part of this this thing, right? But when it comes to compliance of this act, they are saying that you just have to maintain 4 things. First, form number 1 may you have to file annual return by 30th April of every year. There is nothing more than annual return related with compliance of all the 16 labor laws. It has to be filed by both small and a very small establishment. Second one is you have to keep form number 2 only by the small establishment. There is employee register not to be kept by the very small establishment. Third one is form number 3, that is a wage register to be maintained by both the establishments, and a wage slip has to be maintained. And further they are saying if you are getting into contravention of this act, 5,000 ka penalty one time, otherwise there is a monetary penalty with 1 month and 6 month ka 1 month to 6 month ka jail, right? So criminally punishable this act is, right? So we have done with what, students? We have done with simplification of labor law as well, right? Now I'll go ahead with the gratuity act, and once the gratuity act is over, today's quota for labor law is done, right? Now going ahead with payment of gratuity act. What is gratuity, students? When it comes to gratuity, it stands as a gratuitous payment. Gratuitous means it's up to you. You may pay or you may not pay. But earlier it was a gratuitous payment, but now it is a kind of mandatory gift that need to be given by the employer to the employee when the employee is being terminated from the employment, or he is being died due to during his employment, or he got into permanent total disablement. Okay, but in order to be eligible to get the gratuity, it is a kind of mandatory gift that is required under Payment of Gratuity Act that has to be made by the employer to the employee, right? You have to have minimum period of service within the establishment of 5 years. Means if you have served an organization for 5 years, then only you will be eligible for gratuity. Like for pension, you will be eligible if you have continuously served for a minimum period of 10 years. For gratuity, minimum service period of 5 years is mandatory, but that 5 years is not applicable in case of death or disablement. Okay, death or permanent disablement. Is it clear? Applicable to all establishment where the number of employees are not less than 10, but by giving 12 month ka notice, right, the appropriate government can get it applicable over you, right, even if you are having number of employees less than 10, right? If factories, shop and establishment, for factories, mines, oil fields, plantation, ports, there is no such limit of 10 employees. Okay, apprentice is not an employee, right? Appropriate government is generally central government. For central government owned organizations or factory, mines, it is central government, otherwise it is state government, right? What is continuous service? I told you very clearly, when it comes to continuous service, it requires continuous service of 5 years to be eligible for what? Payment of gratuity, right? If in the continuous period you got laid off, or you got maternity leave, or if you got sickness leave, that will not be counted as interruption, right? And now how many days will be counted as continuous year? Remember, if your organization is working for less than 6 days a week, you have to work for entire 190 days in order to be treated as you are in continuous service. And if your organization is working for more than 6 weeks a day, more means 6 weeks a day, sorry, 6 days a week, I'm so sorry, 6 days a week, you have to work for 240 days. So it is a bit technical, but understand what is the first requirement to be eligible for gratuity. The employee has to serve for a continuous period of 5 years, then only he'll be eligible for gratuity, right? Second condition, what they are saying, that this continuous services will be treated as continued even if there would be an interruption due to sickness, maternity leave, employment injury, etc. Right? Now, do you have to work for all working days? No, you have to just work for 190 days in a year if your organization is working for, what? If your organization is working for 5 days a week, right? And if your organization is working for 6 days a week, you have to work for 240 days, right? And any fraction beyond 6 months will be counted as 1 year. So for 6 months, you have to work for 95 days or 120 days. Then it will be treated as what you have worked for a period of 6 months as well. Is it clear? So if I have worked for 4.5 years, it will be treated as I have worked for 5 years and I am all eligible for gratuity. The condition of 5 years continuous period is not applicable in death and permanent total disablement, right? But this 4.5 year will be counted as 5 year. For that 4 years, I have to work for minimum period of 190 days every year if my establishment is working for 5 days or less, or if my organization is working for 6 days, then I have to work for every year 240 days, and for that 6 months it is 95 days and 120 days, right? For seasonal establishment, it will be treated as 75% attendance is mandatory. Is it clear? This is summary table I have made, so you guys can go through with the same. Gratuity will be payable on superannuation, retirement, resignation, and death and disablement. In case of death and disablement, condition of 5 years continuous service is not at all mandatory, right? On that, nominee will be eligible for the gratuity. If the nominee is minor, then the controller of the gratuity will get it invested somewhere which is beneficial for the minor person, and once the minor would become major, it will be paid to him. Is it clear? Gratuity can be, for maximum amount of gratuity can be 20 lakh. Remember the formula, it is 15 by 26 multiplied by last month's salary multiplied by completed years. If you guys have ever gone through with Income Tax Act, there is a formula. For every completed year, you will be eligible for 15 days ka salary as a gratuity. So the maximum gratuity that can be payable will be 15 by 26. It will be treated as 26 as the working days. Okay. So it will be 15 by 26 multiplied by last drawn salary multiplied by completed years. Is it clear? You will be eligible for gratuity. So if you have worked for 30 years, you will be eligible for 15 month ka your salary based on your last month ka salary, right? Or 20 lakh rupees, whichever is lower will be the maximum gratuity amount, right? Now, gratuity can be forfeited if you have committed any loss or righteous behavior or moral turpitude activity within the organization. Your gratuity is subject matter of forfeiture. But if you are not vacating the quarter given by the employer, it will not be a ground for forfeiting your gratuity. Is it clear? In case of damage, you have to produce the proof of damage, but in case of righteous behavior or any act against moral turpitude, they can forfeit your gratuity altogether, right? But otherwise, in case of damage, partial forfeiture is allowed. Non-vacation of quarter, the case has came. Non-vacation of quarter would not lead to what? Right to forfeit your gratuity. Is it clear? Once the gratuity will become payable, it is the duty of the employee to make an application for the payment of gratuity within 30 days. Okay. And it is the duty of the employer to release the gratuity as soon as possible. Is it clear? For misconduct, you have been terminated from the organization. Can your gratuity will be forfeited? In case of misconduct, you have to prove the loss. Till the value of the loss, gratuity can be forfeited, but a reasonable opportunity of being heard will be provided to him, right? Service quarter, you are not vacating, your gratuity is not subject matter of withholding, right? Right? You are a school teacher and you are drawing 3500 per month ka salary, will you be eligible for gratuity? Yes. Now school teachers are part of what? Gratuity. Okay. If you are on leave, it will not be treated as interruption of services, right? On death, your employer is dismissing the application of gratuity to your employee, to your wife, stating that the employee hasn't worked for 5 years. For that 5 years ka continuous service is not at all required, right? If you after your termination it is found that you are the part of misappropriation during your employment, nothing can be done against gratuity. Okay. If your settlement is demanding for more gratuity than 15 days ka salary, you have to pay the gratuity as per settlement, not as per the act. In all the labor laws, this is the single principle. If something is better than what is provided by the labor law, the better will prevail for the benefit of the worker. Okay, done, students. So we have done with 4 chapters. We have done with State Insurance Act. We have done with PF Act. We have done with Gratuity Act. We have done with Simplification of Labor Laws Act, right? So we have done with Industrial Dispute Act today. We have done with PF Act, ESI Act, Gratuity Act, and Simplification of Labor Law, right? So 17th chapter is fully done, and chapter number 19th is being substantially done, right? Only Maternity Benefit Act and Apprentice Act is pending. Then our chapter number 19 is over, right? Right, students. So starting with next chapter of social security legislation, which is nothing more than Maternity Benefit Act 1961. So just let's understand the basic concept of Maternity Benefit Act 1961. So if we do talk about Maternity Benefit Act, we do talk about exactly benefit that would be available to a woman during pregnancy, right? Because when it comes to birth giving right, we can say that by nature birth giving right has been given to a woman. So logically, if a working woman would get into pregnancy, she would be provided with certain leaves, because her medical condition definitely seeks certain kinds of relief, certain kind of concession, certain kind of benefit that should be provided by the law in order to make sure that no employer can terminate a woman on the ground of her pregnancy. Remember, if you will go through with this law, you will get to know that if a woman is pregnant and employer is like willing to terminate him on the verge of pregnancy by putting whatever reasons, such termination will be invalid over here in this act. Okay. And here the mother is being classified into 3 category of mother: biological mother, who is giving birth to the child. And biological mother is going to be divided into 2 parts: mother for up to 2 child and mother beyond 2 child. So there would be a different provision of concession or leave, paid leaves. They are also talking about adopting mother. Adopting mother is a mother who is going to adopt a child where the age of the child is less than 3 months. And the third one is commissioning mother, means if a lady is giving birth to a child through surrogacy, then she would become commissioning mother after getting the child. So that is called commissioning mother. So 3 category of mothers they'll talk about. So one is biological, the birth giving mother. The second one is adopting mother, which is adopting the child. And the third one is आपका commissioning mother through surrogacy. Okay. So let's start with the benefit provision. So the act has been inspired from Constitution, article number 39. Basic objective is to support the dignity of motherhood and support the mother and child during that crucial period. Applicable to all the establishment of mines, factories, circus industries, plantation, and also applicable to an establishment where minimum number of employees are 10 or more. Okay, so the act will provide about the paid leaves to a mother. Okay, it will talk about what paid leaves to the mother. Now first relief is in section 4. Section 4 clearly states that if you are giving birth to a child, or you are subject matter of miscarriage, or a woman is subject matter of termination of pregnancy, she cannot work for a period of 6 weeks from the date of giving birth to the child, from the date of miscarriage, or from the date of termination of pregnancy. Means 6 weeks mandatory rest is there. Okay, if you are pregnant, if you have given birth to a child, or you are you face miscarriage, or you have medically terminated, means aborted your pregnancy, you are not allowed to work for a period of 6 weeks, and it is the duty of employer to not to allot you work or allow you to resume the work for a period of minimum 6 weeks. Okay, now they are saying that at least 10 weeks before your pregnant due date of delivery, at least 10 weeks before the due date of your delivery, that is at least 10 weeks before the due date of your delivery, the duty of the employer is to make sure that he will not allow you any work which is of odious nature, means which is cumbersome in nature, which is involving long hours of standing, or which will disturb or create any kind of problem, mental or physical health problem with the pregnant lady. So two reliefs are there. I told you the entire act will talk about three mothers: biological mother, commissioning mother, and the adopting mother. And here for the biological mother, it has been clearly stated that for the period of 6 weeks from the date of delivery, abortion or miscarriage, not allowed to work at all, and employer should not let her resume the work, right? Second, they are saying that at least 10 weeks before your due date of delivery, no odious work, proper concession in terms of work, sitting arrangement should be made so that there should be no physical or mental disturbance during that crucial period. Okay, your salary will be, whatever paid leaves will be given to you, it will be totally dependent on last 3 months ka average salary. Okay, so you are entitled for maternity benefit paid leaves, and paid leaves will be paid based on the last 3 months ka average salary, so that if due to any reason your salary has been reduced over a period of last 3 months, it will not affect your overall maternity benefit. So in order to determine the maternity benefit, average salary of 3 months will be considered. A woman would only be entitled for maternity benefit if she has worked for minimum period of 80 days during the last preceding financial year. Then only you will be eligible for maternity benefit. If you have worked for less than 80 days, that is less than around 3 months, you will not be eligible for what maternity benefit. Right, total maternity benefit will be of 26 weeks. Okay, but if you are commissioning mother, or you are adopting mother, or you are the mother of the third child, that period will be 12 weeks. Okay, is it clear? So what would be the maximum benefit that will be available under maternity benefit act? It will be 26 weeks or gross, right? But for commissioning mother, adopting mother, and for mother of the third child, it should be 12 weeks. Like, but remember, mother of the third leaving child, okay, if out of first two child, one child could not survive, then she would be treated as eligible for 26 weeks ka a holiday. Remember that 26 weeks ka leave entitlement. Got my point? 2 child should be leaving child, then the third surviving child के लिए she will be eligible for 12 weeks. In case of death of the woman, the husband will be eligible for all the benefits. Okay, just a minute. I told you adopting mother and commissioning mother is going to get 12 weeks ka leave. When adopting mother should adopt the child where the age of the child should be less than 3 months, then only she would be entitled for the benefit, right? And even after expiry of the 26 weeks or 12 week, if work from home facility can be offered to the lady to take care of her child, she should be provided with work from home facility. Okay. 50% of the amount due should be paid before the delivery, and remaining 50% should be paid within 48 hours of delivery. Okay. Within 48 hours. Is it clear? And once she'll resume the work, she would be provided with nursing break. 2 nursing breaks are mandatory till the child will attain the age of 15 months. Even crush facility has to be provided if the establishment is having 15 or more employees. Okay. If you will fail to provide maternity benefit, 3 months to 1 year ka imprisonment is there. Okay. Now giving you a quick review. When it comes to Maternity Benefit Act, it is stating certain kind of benefit that would be available to a woman during pregnancy, or if she is a commissioning mother or adopting mother. This act is going to be applicable on all the factories, including all other establishments where the number of employees are 10 or more, right? So a woman would be absolutely entitled that no person, no employer should disallow a woman on the ground that she is pregnant, and no employer is allowed to terminate a woman on the verge of pregnancy. It will lead to contravention of this act, right? Further, they are saying that during the period of 6 weeks from the date of date of actual delivery, miscarriage or abortion, no woman should get into resuming the work, and the employer should not provide her the work, right? Then further they are saying that being period of motherhood, being in the period of motherhood, they are being provided with 26 week gross period till which she will get the paid leaves. Means for the entire 26 weeks she will be eligible to get the payment of salary, that is around 6 months ka paid salary will be there for the maternity benefit. That is going to be counted based on last 3 months ka average salary, right? But if she is the mother of the third surviving child, she would be eligible for 12 weeks. Commissioning mother will be eligible for 12 weeks. Adopting mother, if she is adopting less than 3 months ka baby, then she will be eligible for 12 months ka paid leaves, right? Further they are stating that during the period of 10 weeks from the due date of delivery, the employer should take care of her physical and mental health. He should not provide her a work which is of cumbersome or odious in nature, or any kind of difficult long standing period or something, right? Means physically and mentally exhausting work should not be provided to her. Further, they are saying that if you will not comply with the provision of this act, you would be subject matter of up to 3 months to 1 year ka jail. Further, they are saying that even after the expiry of 26 weeks or 12 weeks, if you can provide her work from home, do provide her work from home. Further, they are stating that if you have number of employees 15 or more, then you should provide the crush facility as well. And you should provide her, if she resumed the work, minimum 2 nursing break in addition to other breaks in order to feed the child. That is called nursing break, right? Done. This is all the provision of what Maternity Benefit Act. And entire benefit should be paid 50% in advance, and remaining amount can be paid within 48 hours of the delivery, or miscarriage or whatsoever would be happened, right? Is it clear, students? Manageable? Ruchika is working in an establishment. She legally adopted a girl child where the age of the child is 1 month. Now the employer is denying to give any kind of benefit. She will be totally eligible for 12 weeks ka benefit, right? Because a mother, if she is adopting a child where the age of the child is less than 3 months, she is eligible for the benefit, right? So this was what this was Maternity Benefit Act. It took hardly 15 minutes to finish the Maternity Benefit Act. Now, Apprentice Act, although they have asked for few questions from Apprentice Act, so I'm just going to cover the overview. When it comes to apprentice, remember, apprentice is nothing more than an industrial trainee who has been appointed for providing the vocational training, or providing the industrial training, or providing the proper training which is a part of course or part of engineering degree or a part of any vocational or professional program. So it is the duty of the employer, if they are being eligible to appoint the apprentice, to provide them adequate environment, adequate equipment, supervisor and trainer to get their training efficiently completed. And it is the duty of the apprentice that he should not bunk the training, he should always be available for the training, he should try and test variety of work, and he should give his 100% towards the training program. So these all are the basic provision under this act. But institute has asked one time after new syllabus, that is why I'm teaching you. An apprentice, even we company secretary students are being liable to get into articleship, right? So in terms of non-technical background, we are being treated as article clerk, and they are being treated as apprentice being from the technical background. Okay. The period of training not provided by law. Anything has not been provided by law, because everything is going to be determined, which is going to be the part of the curriculum in which they have enrolled, right? So if their curriculum is demanding for 2 years ka training, they have to take 2 years ka training. If it is requiring for 3 months, 6 months ka training, they have to take that kind of training. Okay. Designated trade is nothing more than the trade which is eligible to appoint the trainees. Graduate trainee means which is a part of the graduate program, right? Vocational trainee means which is the part of the vocational program, right? Trade apprentice is nothing more than an apprentice who is not there in the technical training but other part of the management training. See, when it comes to graduate training, it is the part of your graduation program. When it comes to technician, vocational apprentice, it is the part of your vocational program. Trade apprentice means you are learning a specific skill like carpentering, plumbing, mobile repair, etc. Optional trade apprentice means appointed by the employer according to his requirement. Okay. Apprentice for general trade should be minimum 14 years. For hazardous trade, age should not be less than 18 years. Physical fitness and educational criteria has to be satisfied. That is going to be notified by the appropriate government. Before appointing any apprentice trainee, contract of apprentice has to be executed, and copy of that apprentice contract need to be submitted with the relevant officer within 30 days. That is called apprentice advisor within 30 days. Okay. Like if you being a company secretary student will get into articleship trainee with any trainer, you have to submit the copy of your articleship training contract with institute within the period of 30 days. They'll check that all the terms of apprentice training are reasonable enough. Okay. And even returns has to be filed. We have to quarterly file the return in order to justify that our learning process is quite smooth. Okay. So copy of apprentice, without apprenticeship contract of apprenticeship, you cannot hire as a trainee, and a copy of the same has to be submitted with the apprentice advisor appointed by the appropriate government within 30 days, right? And if he finds certain objection, the contract need to be changed accordingly. Okay. Period, and nothing has been provided in this act that what would be the period. So period is going to be determined according to the program in which you have enrolled. Okay. Employer's responsibility to provide basic infrastructure, proper training, proper technician who will support the training program, right? This is age wala criteria is quite very important. 14 year, 18 year, remember that. Second is, if the number of employer is having number of worker more than 250, he has to bear all the cost of the training. But if he is having less than 250 worker, then he has to he will share the cost of training with the government. Okay. If number of employees with the employer is more than 250, he has to bear all the cost of the trainee for the apprentice. If he is having number of employee less than 250, it is going to be shared with the government. Okay. I told you qualified supervisor and all has to be provided, and trainee has to make sure that he is attending the training program diligently, regular attendance, following orders, contract compliances, right? Overtime is only permissible if apprentice advisor will permit, otherwise no overtime is allowed. Weekly 1 holiday is mandatory, right? All records has to be maintained and certain returns has to be filed. If there would be any dispute between trainer and employer and apprentice, it is going to be resolved by apprentice advisor. Okay. And if you are unhappy with the order of the apprentice advisor, you can prefer an appeal within the period of 30 days. Okay. After your articleship, whether you are going to get employment or not, it totally depends upon employer. There should be a proper policy for the same. But if it is written in apprentice contract that you are going to give him employment after apprentice ends, you have to provide him. Done. No question, only one question has been asked. Basic question it was, I guess. This is it. Not much important this chapter is, because there is lot to ask in this chapter, that is chapter number 19. So we have done with chapter number 19, that is of labor law. Now only chapter number 14, chapter number 15 and chapter number 20 is pending. Otherwise all the chapters are being done, right? Starting with again labor laws. So when it comes to chapter number 14, it is dealing with the constitution and labor laws. So first concept they are teaching you is the state of labor laws in developing nation and a state of labor laws in developed nation. So logically, if I would say that if I would be the part of the developed nation like US, like so logically, can I say that the bargaining power of employer as well as bargaining power of worker would be like quite sound, right? They would be capable enough to deal into labor arrangement according to their contract, right? Means they can get into contract, they can exercise their bargaining power, and there is no need to have much interruption in terms of labor law policies, right? So because both are empowered, adequately empowered in terms of education, in terms of legal powers, in terms of negotiation skills, they're quite empowered. So you will see minimum possible labor laws in developed nation. But when it comes to developing nation, there would be a situation of excessive population, low opportunities and all. So employer may exploit the worker. So there is a need to have minimum wages act. There is a need to have payment of wages act in order to make sure that timely payment of wages is being done, in order to make sure that minimum bearable wages, marginal wages are being paid to the worker. There should be minimum payment of bonus act. There should be a maternity benefit act and all. So I would say that when it comes to labor laws, they would be more interfering in developing nation but less interfering in developed nation. There would be many labor laws when it comes to developing a nation like India. There would be minimum possible labor laws when it comes to developed nation. Is it clear? Like US. Now when it comes to labor law, they are directly, all the laws over here in India is being originated from the constitution. So there are certain two aspects of the constitution. If we'll go ahead with the constitution majorly from the point of view of labor law can be divided into two parts: fundamental rights provided in part 3 of constitution, and directive principle of state policy provided under part 4 of the constitution. Okay. So the directive principle of state policy is what? They are nothing more than the norms that need to be satisfied by the ruling government, by the Parliament of India, while making the law, because to safeguard the interest or to provide socio-economic justice to the people of India is the duty of the government. Okay. So the parliament and the central government and state assembly and the state government is under an obligation under Constitution of India part 4, that is directive principle of state policy, to make sure that all the laws has been framed in such a manner that government is capable enough to discharge their duties pertaining to the people of India. Okay. So these are the guidelines that have to be followed by the government while making the laws. And when it comes to fundamental right, this is a right that has been available to everyone, each and every individual over here in India, that will make sure that they should be provided with basic human rights. Okay. Now there are certain few important case laws. Remember, this case has been asked in GIGL paper, although it is there in setting up of business. So can a trade union file a suit on behalf of the employee if the employee is incapable to file a suit against employer? Answer would be yes, because employee and trade union both are standing in a locus standing in the same point, because trade union is nothing more than the group of employees and they are being formed for taking care of the interest of the employee. So trade union would have all the right to file a suit against the employer if employer is not discharging his duties. Okay. Sorry students. If airline regulation is putting such kind of clauses like a pregnant woman cannot be pregnant during the period of her employment, or if she got pregnant during the period of 6 months, or she'll get married during the period of her contract, she would be subject matter of termination. Such kind of clauses in any law would be unconstitutional. If there is one case, it is the state duty of the state government to maintain proper dispensary and hospitals for the people working in that state. So if a workman got an accident, he met with an accident and he approached a state owned governmental hospital, but they could not manage to provide him proper treatment. He approached the private hospital. Now he is claiming a suit against the state that they are not capable enough to perform the basic functions related with directive principle of state policy. State has to compensate that employee. Okay. Whenever it comes to taking any action against the employee, a fair and reasonable opportunity of being heard should be provided to the employee. You need not to learn these all cases. Although in CS professional they have asked a particular case study, but executive may we cannot expect that. Okay. Government should make a law for equal pay for equal work without gender discrimination. What is Article 14? Article 14 is talking about two things, students: equality before law and equal protection of law. And Article 14 is applicable to both citizens and non-citizens. When it comes to equality before law, means everyone is equal in front of the law, and equal protection of law means all are subject matter of equal laws. So when it comes to labor law, they should also be based on that concept, that equality before law. So whether you are male worker or female worker, if you are performing similar work or work of similar nature, you would be subject matter of equal payment, right? And your recruitment cannot be means no job can be gender oriented job, that this job is only available for man or this job will be only available to woman, right? These two things are there. Article 16 is talking about whenever it comes to a public employment will be open for everyone, but there would be certain reservation based on place of residence. Like if you are if the Kolkata, West Bengal coming out with some vacancy, they can put a condition that only Bengali people can join that job, because Bengali can only communicate in Bengali, right, language. Right to form trade union is derived from Article 19. So three article they have taught as of now. Article 14, gender discrimination will be treated as against Article 14. Article 16 is all about in public employment everyone will get the equal opportunity. There would be no discrimination. Article 19 is you can form trade union, right? Article 21 is right to life. Right to life is all about no one can exploit the labor, no one can get into such kind of contract which will lead to mental issues or physical exploitation or mental exploitation of the worker. Everybody is having right over here in India to live with dignity and respect. So any kind of prison labor, slavery will be punishable offense under Constitution of India. Article 23 is talking about any kind of forced labor or beggar will be punishable offense over here in India. Beggar means getting the work done with below marginal pay. Okay. Article 24 is stating that child labor is not prohibited over here in India, but child labor is not at all allowed in hazardous employment, mines and factories. Okay. That is, these articles are related with part 3 of the Constitution of India. Article 14, that is equality before law and equal protection of law. Article 16, public employment में equality. Article 21, right to live with dignity. Article 23 is dealing with any kind of forced labor or prison labor is punishable offense. Article 24 is dealing with child labor is not prohibited, child labor is permissible but prohibited in hazardous employment factories and mines. While making any law, the government should make sure that all the provisions of fundamental rights and all the provisions of directive principle of state policy are duly complied with. To prepare a welfare state is the duty of the government. Welfare state means which is state protecting the right and interest of the people working within the state, which will lead to proper distribution of wealth and prosperity amongst people. So this minimum wages act, payment of wages act, payment of bonus act, minimum gratuity payment act, provident fund, these all are what welfare laws, right? It is the duty of government to make sure that inequality should be reduced. 38 is all about welfare and protection against inequality. Okay. Equal way work for equal pay. 43 is talking about bottom-up approach, that whenever it comes to developing the labor policies or when it comes to determining the terms and condition of employment, there should be a bottom-up approach adopted by the employer rather than top-down approach. It is the duty of the government to make such law that will promote the labor participation in the management activities as well. Means they should also have a right to participate in the management of the company. So that is called bottom up approach. Bottom up. 43 is living wage. Now see, whenever we are talking about living wage, now the law is running not behind minimum wage, which is just talking about shelter, food and clothes. Whenever we are talking about living wage, it includes education, health insurance, medical treatment, these all other amenities that should be the part of the human life in order to improve the standard of living of individuals. Even in future we'll say that Indian law will make it mandatory to pay the living wage rather than minimum wage. So in future we can say that there would be a chances that the financial burden of the work towards workman of the employer is going to be increased, right? Because they would not be only responsible to take care of provident fund, gratuity, etc. So many things. Along with that, they have to pay monthly living wage, which include medical insurance, which includes education expenses of the children, which includes other medical facilities and all. Okay, that is Article 43. Very important it is. social justice is all about equality in terms of society and equality in terms of finances, economic equality. Living wage, minimum wage, very important. I told you in professional one case has been came, so I have put that case. But social justice, PIL and SIL, although I have included, but it is not part of your syllabus. Okay, done. We have done with one more chapter, that is constitution and labor law, that is chapter number 14. Giving you a quick review, remember the few important article 14, which is talking about equality before law and equal protection of law, which will lead to gender equalization. Article 16, that in public employment everybody should have equal access. Article number 19, which is dealing with fundamental freedom to form an association or union. Then article 21, which is talking about fundamental right of life, right, leave the life with dignity. Article 23, which is talking about any kind of forced labor or prison labor is punishable offense over here in India. Other than article 23, 24 is that is child labor is not acceptable. Article 39 is stating that 38 is stating that developing a welfare state is the duty of the government. Law should be made in such a manner that a welfare state can be constituted. Further, article 43 is all about living wage, which is very important. Article 43A is bottom up approach, right? So these articles are important, keep it in your mind. Along with that, whatever case I have taught you, that are important. Is it clear? Done, students. We have done with what? Constitution and labor law. Now I am going to proceed further with labor codes. 4 labor codes are there, we have to go through with those labor codes. Then only I think POSH will be pending of labor laws. Now proceeding further with the labor codes. So 4 labor codes are there. Actually, labor codes has been passed, but it has not been implemented yet. Okay, so there are multiplicity of labor laws over here in India. Hundreds of labor laws are there when it comes to combining the parliamentary laws, that is central government laws, and state laws. So in order to reduce that multiplicity, they have converted all labor laws in 4 codes. All the similar labor laws are being grouped together and converted into code. But still, because under all the labor laws, we know very well the rule making power lies with the state government. So until and unless state government will come out with the rules related with the code, these codes are not going to be implemented. But still, what all are the new features in labor code that has been launched in 2019 and 2020, we have to go through with the same. So rather than going ahead with why the labor codes has been passed, what is the basic objective? The basic objective is to reduce the multiplicity of labor law and making simplification of labor laws. That is the core objective of labor codes. Okay, so let's go ahead with one code. Okay, and you have to even learn about students learn about all the laws that are being dissolved under a code. So first one is just a minute. First one is Code of Wages. So now the Minimum Wages Act, Payment of Wages Act, Payment of Bonus Act and Equal Remuneration Act are being grouped together and being converted into Code of Wages. Okay, just a minute, students. So Code of Wages. So first thing, they will go ahead with minimum wage guarantee. Now first feature of the Code of Wages, first remember that 4 labor laws are being merged together and has converted into Code of Wages. Minimum Wages Act, Payment of Wages Act, Equal Remuneration Act and Payment of Bonus Act. These 4 are being grouped together and converted into one single labor code, that is called Code of Wages. The first thing is they are talking about, as of now over here in India, when it comes to minimum wage is going to be vary from state to state. There is no central uniform wage rate, but under new wage code there would be a minimum wage rate determined by the center, that has to be followed by all the states. State can increase that minimum wage but cannot decrease the same. So there would be some threshold limit, there would be some central limit, uniform limit that is going to be applicable throughout the nation. Is it clear? Equal remuneration is same. That is called floor rate. That is called what? Floor rate. Now the second thing that would be mandated under this act, now the wage cannot be paid in cash, it has to be paid digitally. That would be the second amendment that will be brought by payment wage code. Okay. Now the inspector cannot act as just an autocratic way. He has to act as a facilitator. He has to support the employer that how he can comply with the requirement of wage code. Is it clear? Three things. First one is floor rate has been launched at central level. The second one is inspector has to act as a facilitator, right? And the third one is payment should be made digitally only, right? Now there is no single penalty, there will be graded penalties. Okay. Advisory board has been constituted to advise central and state government in terms of wage related matter. Earlier burden of proof of non-payment of wages lies on employees, but now it has been lies on employer. Remember, only 6 points. First 4 laws that has been merged together and converted into minimum wage code. The wage code, I am so sorry, launched in 2019. The second one is flow rate at central level. The third one is payment should be through digitally only. The inspector should act as a facilitator to support better compliances by employer. Graded penalty has been launched, means there are slab rates for the penalties. Burden of proof lies on the employer, not on the employee now. An advisory board has been constituted in order to advise government, central state government to come out with wage related norms. Okay. Unorganized sectors has been covered. Unorganized sectors has been covered. The laws has been made very transparent. Implementation challenges there, like until and unless state will support the law, this is not going to be converted into implemented law, right? No proper education and training has been provided under this norm, so that is the problem. Done. So minimum wage code has been done. Wage code has been done. Is it clear? Got my point, students? So first code was wage code. So you just need to prepare long note on these codes. Okay. Now just learn 3434 laws. Now industrial relation code, trade union, industrial dispute, and employee standing order act. These 3 laws has been merged together and been converted into industrial relation code. Remember, standing order act and industrial dispute act, which is a part of your syllabus, and the third one is trade union act, right? The definition of worker include now under this act any worker whose salary is up to 18,000. Okay, even if he is performing supervisory function. If you are a contractual employee, you are going to get the same benefit as a permanent employee. That is the second amendment. Earlier, concerted casual leave has not been classified as a strike, but now it will be classified as a strike. Insurance under Atal Bimit Vyakti Kalyan Yojana became mandatory for every worker. Dispute resolution has to be done within the period of 12 months. Remember the pointers. Now any worker, whether he is performing the basic work or supervisory work, if his salary is up to 18,000, he would be protected under Industrial Dispute Act. Earlier, contractual employees has been subject matter of discrimination, but now they are going to get the same treatment. Earlier concerted leave will not be treated as strike, but now it is. uh, Insurance for all the employees under Atal Bimit Kalyan Yojana is mandatory. Dispute filed with the tribunal need to be resolved within the period of 1 year. There is a confusion that 14 days ka notice or 6 week ka notice, but now it has been plain that after giving 14 days ka notice you can get into strike or lockout. Trade union has been provided with governmental recognition, and compounding of offences has been provided. So remember 6-7 points. When it comes to industrial relation code 2020, it has been come up, industrial relation code has been come up with the combination of 3 laws: Trade Union Act, Standing Order Act, and the third one is Industrial Dispute Act. Second, worker ka definition has been expanded. Earlier only the worker, which is the basic worker, was included in the definition of worker, but now even if supervisor drawing a salary of monthly 18,000 would come under the definition of worker. Now fixed term employment is going to be means earlier permanent employee and contractual employee is subject matter of discrimination, but now it is not that. Third, earlier concerted leave will not be treated as a strike, but now it is. Earlier insurance was optional, but now insurance is mandatory for everyone under Atal Bimit Kalyan Yojana. Earlier there were a different timeline to resolve the dispute. Now there is a plain timeline to resolve the dispute by tribunal, that is 1 month. Earlier period of notice is like little contradictory, but now only 14 days ka notice and you can get into strike or lockout, right? All the trade union which is having minimum 51% stake of any organization will be classified as a recognized trade union by the government, right? And settlement of offences are being provided. Is it clear? So we have done with 2 codes. Now 2 codes are pending, and after that Social Security Code and the Occupational Safety Code. After this, even this chapter has been over, right? Now proceeding further with Social Security, Social Security Code. So if you'll go through with the Social Security Code, students, remember 4-5 laws, not more than that. Employee State Insurance Act, Provident Fund Act, Maternity Benefit Act, Gratuity Act. These acts are going to be merged, those which are in your syllabus, merged and being converted into Social Security law. Okay, Social Security Code, Maternity Benefit Act, PF Act, ESI Act, and Gratuity Act, right? Covered both organized and unorganized sector. Even unorganized sector would be the part of this code, which has been excluded by the old law. For unorganized sector, it will be the duty of the government to create social security fund. Second, gig worker, that is freelancers, would also be included in the definition of worker for social security. Even platform worker, like worker working with Amazon, Swiggy, Zomato, Ola, will be included in the definition of social security. National database has been created for the worker for unorganized sector. So a wide development has been done when it comes to social security law. Earlier unorganized sector was excluded, but now unorganized sector employees has been included, and a proper social security fund has been created by the appropriate government for the same. Platform worker and gig worker, that is freelancers and platform worker, has been included in the definition of social security. National database has been created for worker, right? Universal or a single account number has been created for ESIC, EPFO. Okay, combined number. If there is a vacancy in your organization, it is the duty of the employer having number of employees 20 or more to publish vacancy online. Is it clear? Remember, Remember the names. Social Security Code includes Maternity Benefit Act, Payment of Gratuity Act, ESIC and EPF. Only earlier organized sector has been included, but now worker working in unorganized sectors are going to be the part of this. No. Second is for unorganized sector, the appropriate government will be ultimately responsible to maintain their national data bank and to provide them funding, right, in case of social issues, right. uh, Platform worker and gig worker are now the part of the social security schemes. Further, universal account number has been created for EPF and ESIC. If the company is having number of worker 20 or more, online reporting of vacancies became mandatory, right. Right, students. Now the last code, that is Occupational Safety, Health and Working Condition Code 2019, Factories Act, Mines Act. Remember only the relevant act that is there in your syllabus. Okay. Contract Labor Regulation and Abolition Act. Okay. Contract Labor Regulation and Abolition Act. BD and Cigar Worker Act, Sales and Promotion Employees Act. These all acts are being part of Occupational Safety Code. Okay. Technological adaptation has been done in terms of marking the attendance and all. Okay. Migrant labor has been given with the specific relevance under these codes. Now the migrant labor the employer has to provide annual traveling allowance to the migrant laborers. A national database of migrant labor is going to be created. Free annual health checkup plan has become mandatory. Women should be provided with night working and their safety would be the responsibility of the employer. A central national helpline for migrant worker will be provided. Just a minute. Database I told you. So few things are being inculcated in new law. Technological adaptation, annual traveling allowance to migrant labor, a national database and national helpline for them, right. Annual health checkup has become mandatory, right, for every employee working in the factory or mines, right. Women should be provided with night shift working with the adequate safety duty of the employer, right. So this is what beta, this is we have done with what we have done with chapter number 15, that is labor codes. That is more than enough, right. So done with almost labor laws, right. Now only one, I think POSH Act is pending, right. Now starting with the next topic of labor law, that is POSH Act. So when it comes to POSH Act, the full form of the POSH Act is Sexual Harassment of Women on Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013. So when it comes to women should also be provided with workplace dignity, right. When it comes to inspiration of this law, that when it comes to sexual harassment, we can say that it can be verbal, it can be physical, it can be mental, any kind of harassment which is creating a kind of environment where the woman is not finding herself as a safe in terms of, we can say that they have created a hostile environment, or they have created a kind of environment where the woman is finding like unsafe to work. It will be treated as what, sexual harassment. And this case has been inspired, this act has been inspired from Vishakha judgment, which is a case of Bhavri Devi. She was being gang raped because she was fighting for child marriages, against child marriages, and she was a governmental worker. So in order to protect the dignity of a woman, the Supreme Court has came out with the guidelines that is known as Vishaka guideline, and based on that Vishaka guideline, the law has been passed that is called POSH Act. Okay, POSH Act 2013. Okay. Now, when it comes to sexual harassment, the same definition has been adopted by the POSH Act that has been laid down in the Vishaka judgment. That is, if you are getting into any kind of physical contact to a woman, or you are demanding for sexual favor, or you are giving her a sexually remarked sexually colored remark, or showing her pornography, or any kind of physical, verbal, non-verbal act that of sexual nature, will constitute sexual harassment. So it is not about rape, or it is not all about physical involvement. Even a mental or a verbal or a non-verbal activity that makes a woman unsafe, and it is being associated with some sexual remark, it will be classified as what? Sexual harassment. It will create a hostile environment for the woman. Okay. The basic objective is prevent and protect women from sexual harassment at workplace, but sometimes even women will take advantage of this law. So there should be a law that should also protect the dignity of a man, right? Specifically applicable for workplace sexual harassment, inspired from Article 14 and 15 based on equality and non-discrimination. Article 21, that is right to life and dignity. Okay. Here, remember, when it comes to sexual harassment, it doesn't matter with what intention you have done it, what a kind of impact it has created over the woman, that does matter. Okay. There are two categories of sexual harassment: quid pro quo and hostile work environment. If you are demanding for sexual favor, for promotion or some other benefit, that is a hostile work environment. And quid pro quo is tit for tat, means in exchange of certain favor you are asking for sexual favor. Okay, this for that, that is called quid pro quo. So two kinds of sexual harassment can be there: tit for tat, or this for that, or quid pro quo. Or it can be hostile work environment, where the woman would find herself unsafe working. Okay, applicable on all governmental bodies, non-governmental body, commercial establishment, stadiums, hospitals, all kinds of establishment would be covered under the provision of this act. Is it clear? Aggrieved woman is nothing more than a woman who has filed a POSH complaint against any person. Okay, she can be of any age, she can be employed, not employed. Even apprentice can file a complaint of sexual harassment. Even domestic worker can. For organized sector, they have constituted internal complaint committee, and for unorganized sector like domestic worker and all, appropriate government will constitute LCC, local area, LAC, local area committee. So two committees are over here that is going to be constituted, where one independent woman would be involved, which has been involved in women empowerment related NGOs, and certain employees of the organization will be involved, and they'll evaluate the complaint independently in order to take action against the culprit. Okay, so two committees will be constituted under this act: ICC under organized establishment or organization, and for domestic worker or unorganized sector worker, it would be LAC, local area committee. Okay. Nature of employment doesn't matter. Sexual harassment is sexual harassment. If number of employees are less than 10, you will be classified as an unorganized sector. If the number of workers are 10 and more, you will be classified as an organized sector, right? And sexual harassment, I told you, it can be physical, verbal, non-verbal, any kind of unwelcomed behavior in terms of sexuality, sexual terms, right, will be treated as what? Sexual harassment, right? Now the most important part in this chapter is internal complaint committee and local area committee. Okay, section 4 के according internal complaint committee will be constituted by organization having number of employees 10 and more, right? For taking the complaint or handling the complaint under POSH, right? It will carry one presiding officer who should be the senior most woman member of the organization or its subsidiary or holding. Okay, two other members being associated with cause of woman, and one external member who should be, NGO, a member who is running NGO related with woman member associated with any NGO. Minimum half member should be woman. They'll hold office up to 3 years. So one would be the presiding officer, who would be the senior most female member of the organization, two other members associated with woman cause, and one member who should be an NGO representative, an external member. Okay, and half should be minimum woman, right? Employer has to pay the fees to the external member. Their tenure will be 3 years and they are not subject matter of any reappointment. Any casual vacancy need to be filled by the employer. If you are if you have leaked, the section 16 is all about leaking of the information of POSH case. So if you are being involved, being the committee member, if you are being involved in contravention of section 16, means you have leaked certain information pertaining to POSH case, or just a minute. Okay, students, POSH case, or you are being convicted in any offense under this act or any other act for the time being in force, or you have found to be abuse of your position, such will lead to casual vacancy. Okay, and so you understood, ICC will be constituted by organization having number of employees 10 or more, constituted by employer in writing, will carry two member one senior employee, woman employee, she would be president, two other members associated with woman cause, and one independent member, right? And casual vacancy will be in 16, abuse of power or any disciplinary or any other contravention caused under this act, right? Sorry. Now local area committee will be constituted for unorganized sector, right? It is being constituted for an establishment where the number of employees are less than 10, or if there is a complaint directly against employer, you have to make a complaint in LAC. So LAC is going to be used in 3 cases: for unorganized sector, for organization having number of employees less than 10, and the third one is when the complaint is directly against employer. Then you need not to approach ICC, you have to approach LAC. District officer will appoint LAC. District officer will appoint LAC. It will have one chairperson who should be a woman associated with social cause or woman related cause, one other member, and two other members. Means total 4 members would be there, out of which majority members should be woman. Okay, their term will be 3 years. Even if they'll abuse their power, contravene the provision of section 16 or something, they would be subject matter of termination, and that casual vacancy will be filled by the district officer. I have made a difference between LAC and ICC. Even you guys can go through with the same. Within 3 months from the series date of last incidents, you have to file the complaint. Within how many months, students? 3 months. Okay, but that can be extended by 3 months on sufficient cause basis. Okay, in case of physical or mental incapacity, death, legal hire of the woman can file a complaint. Okay, within how many months you can file POSH case? 3 months, extended by next 3 months, right? Even legal hire can file a case, right? Other than monetary compensation, if they are willing to get into aggrieved woman is willing to get into settlement, it is allowed, but not for money. Okay, and copy of settlement need to be sent to the district officer. both the committees will have all the powers as a civil court. In maximum period of inquiry is 90 days. Within 90 days inquiry need to be finished. Ultimately, if the case will be proved, the police case will be registered. Initially, it's all about, basic investigation of the case, right? Independently by the, so that woman would feel comfortable to file a complaint. If to go to police will become difficult, so it's always better to associate with the committee which is not a police, right? So that is why this act has been implemented, and timely resolution of the dispute is the timely resolution of the case is the basic objective, right? Inquiry need to be completed within 90 days, and inquiry report need to be submitted within 10 days of the completion of inquiry. If a woman will file a wrong complaint or false complaint, even action can be taken against her. For calculating the compensation, her mental trauma, loss of her career opportunity, medical expenses borne by her, financial status of the respondent, and payment feasibility will be checked. This is something very important, okay? In order to determine the compensation to be payable to a victim woman, mental trauma caused to her, career loss caused to her, medical losses caused to her, okay, financial status of the respondent, and payment feasibility will be checked. Section 16, I told you, it is the duty of all the person not to leak the any information pertaining to POSH case with the media, otherwise you would be subject matter of casual vacancy, right? Appeal can be filed against the order of LAC or ICC within the period of 90 days, okay? Employer has to make sure that there is safe working environment, proper information related with POSH should be displayed, proper training program related with POSH should be conducted to provide full cooperation and coordination to the committee, okay? Got my point, students? Is it clear? Offenses under this act is non-cognizable, so police cannot arrest you without warrant, okay? Done. So this is POSH Act, students. Important part is all about LCC, ICC, what is sexual harassment, appeal related provision, and compensation calculation. These few questions are more than enough. Done with the topic, that is POSH Act 2013, right? Now picking up the child labor law. So what do you mean by child? Any person who have not completed the age of 14 years will be treated as child, and any individual who has completed the age of 14 years but not completed the age of 18 years will come under the definition of adolescent. So this act is dealing with child and adolescent labor prohibition and regulation act. So the most important part over here is when it comes to a child, according to section 3, it's clearly stated that child can get into any art related work, means in ad films, or in movies, or in terms of serials they can work, or they can work in their family businesses, but anything they are doing, it should not impact adversely their education at all, okay? They can do it after school hours or during holidays, okay? That is section 3A, and they are not at all being allowed to work other than these two segments, artistic work or family related business handling, okay? Now 3A is stating that adolescents are not being allowed to work in mines, hazardous processes, inflammable substances, or explosions, okay? Adolescents are not allowed to work over there. And when it comes to working hours of adolescent, they are saying that for in a single day he cannot work more than 6 hours, which includes at least 1 hour ka break in between working. Means one shift of the adolescent should not be more than 3 hours, right? Means 3 hours at a time, 3 hours. Maximum working hours would be 6 hours with minimum 1 hour ka break, right? So first shift will be of 3 hours and second shift will be of 2 hours, because 1 hour break is mandatory, right? Maximum working period can be either 7 p.m. He cannot be allowed to work between 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. Means he can work after 8 a.m. but before 7 p.m., right? Overtime is not permitted, right? And in one day he can work only in one establishment. If you are having multiple branch, you cannot ask him to work in any multiple branch. One full holiday is mandatory, and that cannot be changed 4 times a year. Means that holiday, if it is Sunday, it can be changed to Monday only after expiry of 3 months. Okay. If you have appointed adolescent, you have to report to the local inspector that you have appointed adolescent within the period of 30 days. Along with that, you have to put the details like name, location of your establishment, who is managing your establishment, address, and what kind of work you are giving to him. Okay. You have to also maintain register of adolescent working in your organization about working hours, nature of work, and other particulars, including his name. In every railway station and other workplace, it should be clearly written that child labor is prohibited. Okay. If you are being involved in breach of any norms related with child labor or adolescent, it will lead to 6 months to 2 years ka imprisonment. Okay. This is child labor. Got my point, students? Is it clear? So giving you a quick review of child labor again. Children can work only in 2 areas: artistic work or family related business. Adolescent can work in any other than mines, factories, and hazardous substances, but they can work for one single day 6 hours with a break of 1 hour. One shift should not carry more than 3 hours. Weekly one holiday is mandatory, which can be changed after expiry of 3 months. One day, one establishment he can work. And if you are appointing him, you have to maintain proper records and report the inspector that adolescent has been appointed, right? And criminal imprisonment is there, right? Got my point, students? So we have done with child labor as well. Okay. So I think done with entire labor law, right? Done with entire labor laws, है ना?